You have Apopka already for it?
Okay, all right. We'll call the Wednesday, May 6th City Council meeting to order. We have with us Officer Harmon's going to do the prayer, the pledge, and then the fact of the day. Officer Harmon.
Please stand. Yes, thank you. We'll start off with the prayer. All right. Lord, thank you for this day. Please be with our city leaders, our city. Keep everybody safe. In Jesus' name, pray, amen.
Amen.
And we'll start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, for the fact of the day, May 5th, 1973, from Cape Canaveral, Florida, Navy Commander Alan Bartlett Shepard, Jr. is launched into space aboard the Freedom 7 space capsule, becoming the first American astronaut to travel into space. The suborbital flight, which lasted 15 minutes and reached a height of 116 miles into the atmosphere, was a major triumph for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
Thank you, Officer Harmon. Okay. All right, approval of the minutes. Anybody need any changes? If not, look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda review, Edward, anything?
No, there are no changes, Mayor.
Okay. Linda, do we have anybody from? Yes.
I have 3 public comment cards that were submitted online.
Okay, so we got
Like
3
to-
comment cards that were submitted online, just so to.
Do you want those read into the
Yes,
record?
ma'am. Thank you, Linda.
The first one is from Dean Taylor, 978 Berry Leaf Court. This is unincorporated Apopka. The subject is, hello, my question is about South Apopka. When will we see improvement in that area? We also need clean water in that area. South Apopka matters too. The next one is from Carol Charlotte, 1255 Countryman Court, also unincorporated. Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. South Apopka seems to be left behind. I've been watching the meetings recently and happy to hear the development that is coming to the city, especially at a time like this when many folks will be seeking employment as the state and city starts to reopen. However, my only concern is that the area in Apopka that needs the most attention is definitely the south. This is the area that gives Apopka such a bad reputation. That area needs redevelopment, a facelift, and work opportunities bad. There would never be a city center or companies seeking to join or invest because the city fails to reform and invest in South Apopka. It's time for Apopka to join the likelihood of Ocoee and Winter Garden. We are decades behind these cities and losing many capital gains. More cops is not the answer to fix the problem. Jobs and opportunity will. South Apopka is open for business. And the third public comment card is Selena Cruz, Silver Oak, which is unincorporated Apopka. Hello, new to South Apopka, and I think one thing we can do to improve the crime is adding LED lights in the streets in South Apopka. South Apopka is way dark, which makes illegal activity more likely to occur. Hoping for positive changes, please. That's all the public comment cards.
Commissioner Bates, you want to?
Yeah, I actually had some of them reach out to me online as well. I think it's real exciting. There's a lot that has been coming, of course, with coronavirus. It kind of stopped everything for a moment, but it's already funded and already begun to move about a lot of the development down Central. Jim, help me out. It goes down to Michael Gladden, across and up just past Alonzo Williams Park, which is designed to upgrade, to begin to develop and draw business in, as well as partnering with some of the businesses along Central and working with them a new parking lot, not just the one here, but further down. So there's a lot of these things I know are in place, and as I began to share that with those online, they were pleased to hear that. And of course, that's been a real focus for us to see that. So jobs has been a focus. I amen what they're saying there, and that they would know that we are focusing on that. How soon will we be able to start moving forward with our parking lot here and then the other one as well.
The award has been done for the parking lot here. They'll probably be starting in about 2 weeks. We've already got one of the hay trucks from Hall's Feed Store has moved over to the west side by the alley. So basically, it's ready to go. I'll be talking with Beasley Construction about that probably within either the end of this week or beginning of next week for a start date there. Estimating it'll take about 2 months to actually complete. So by the end of the summer, we'll have a brand new parking lot there along with a crosswalk for 5th Street to go over to the commercial on the south side and also the VFW and the community center. So that's a big one. And then the other part that in regards to the lighting, it's about 2.2 miles. It'll be going down Michael Gladden Road, also up Central, Hawthorne, 5th Street, and then all from here all the way to City Center on 6th Street. And that'll get a 12-foot path. We're looking probably an asphalt path for like bikeway, pedestrians, strollers, things like that, along with all lighting and trees and some furniture also. It's about $1.3 million we have budgeted right now. So it'll be a big improvement, and it'll be a big boost, I think, to the area south of Main Street. So.
As well as what had been put in, in this last little bit for Alonzo Williams, the park there.
Correct.
I did a study about all of our parks. There was more put into Alonzo Williams than the rest of the parks put together.
Oh, yeah.
As far as those basic things, not counting the splash pad.
Correct.
Now, do the commissioners have the lighting program? You sent it, I know I got it, I'm not sure whether the lighting, it's got all the lighting across the city.
We have a
Duke.
meeting with Duke tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
And what we did was we took and boxed off south of Apopka, the areas, and what Duke is doing for us right now is looking at those locations where they can easily go in and put a light right away without any cost to us other than, of course, the monthly bill. And so they have identified those locations. I think we're going to talk about them tomorrow.
Okay.
And then, as soon as we sign the agreement, they'll go ahead and put those lights up. So we have a plan. It's just everything's moving slow right now.
If you'd send an email out after the meeting with Duke tomorrow, and just so that everybody's on the same page as far as the lighting.
The full update of
Yeah.
we have things going on all over the city, actually.
Yeah. And it's not just, as for South Apopka specifically, it's not just the lights, but it's actually a walking trail that goes all the way around. So it's really going to bring up the appeal for investment in there, which again then starts bringing along those businesses, economic development. So.
Yeah. Commissioner Smith.
And I just want to also make clear that, if you notice the 3 letters that we received were from unincorporated part of Apopka. So we're talking about the areas outside of the city limits. We're happy and we're grateful for what we're doing there up until Michael Glenn Boulevard, but the area they're really concentrating on is the area that's unincorporated, that's past 10th Street, that we've talked about on several instances about annexing into the city, and so those are the kinds of things that we need to continue to address, and that is really what they're trying to identify is that area that is not an actual part of the city limits that needs improvement.
And probably if we reached out or encouraged those who are watching and writing that in to reach out to Commissioner Moore, who is a part of that. And she had contacted me about our Sandpiper project. I'll talk about that later. But just how they want to really work together with the county and the city on projects like that. So maybe we can encourage her on that side of, outside of our incorporation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Commissioner Becker? Good? Okay. All right. Let's see. Anybody from this public? No, I guess they're all there. Okay. Consent agenda? Anybody need to pull any of these items off or any questions on the consent agenda? If not, look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, expedited construction plan reviews. Is that Jim, David? David? Okay.
Most are aware that Amazon Distribution Center is proposed to occur on Lot 3 and 4 within the Mid-Florida Logistics Park. They are on a fast pace and would like to be under construction in August. So the applicant for the end user has requested that City Council delegate authority to the Development Review Committee to conduct final review of the final development plan. Now, under the new code, as you see before you on the screen, the Development Review Committee for Major Development Plans is authorized to approve the construction plans. The master plan for Mid-Florida Logistics Park and the development of each of the lots are subject to the old code, the 1993 code, and that process would apply. We're starting to trickle down on the number of applications that are subject to the old code, but in this case, they're asking City Council to delegate that authority to save them approximately 4 to 6 weeks in the review process and allow them to start construction in August. That's the goal. There are other applications that will be coming to City Council in June, so this is an approval without appearing before City Council. You will see the preliminary development plan for the site. You'll see an amendment to the PUD master plan that involves this project, and there'll be a development agreement likely that will address the off-site improvements that are needed to accommodate the Amazon Distribution Center. So the Development Review Committee recommendation is for City Council to delegate that authority to the DRC. I believe there's a representative here from the development team for that Amazon site, and they may want to speak as well. Thank you.
Any questions for David?
No, I'm just a couple comments. I mean, and I want to just really emphasize some of the points that you just made, especially for the people that are watching, because again, it's almost like this piece of business is almost kind of starting with the end in mind, and there's still hops along the way for us to review these plans. And like you said, the preliminary plan will come before us. We'll talk through any revisions to the master plan that's already on that piece of property, as well as look at the developer's agreement, because naturally people in that area, as well as probably us up here, would want to understand traffic impacts, operational impacts, the hours of operation of a facility like this. But most importantly, I think it's great that an organization like the applicant is really desiring to come to Apopka, and Apopka is still a desirable place to build during times like this. So,
Yes.
And no construction will commence on the site until City Council has approved those 3 documents I just mentioned.
right.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I know back when Amazon was not welcome in New York, and I mentioned back then we should go after them. I was laughed at the time, and I love the fact that Apopka is coming on the scene as that attractive to business, and it's going to help for our jobs, for our people, for the economic development here, and so I'm thrilled that's happening. And
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to thank the whole team that's in that industrial park. I mean, some of the organizations that are coming there are very good brand recognition for our city, and it's going to help us. So,
Mr. Smith?
I think it's going to be great. I think we have more Amazon trucks in the city of Apopka than any other city.
Get a smile from the applicant. Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll look for a motion from the council to authorize DRC authority to take final action on the final development plan for the DFL-5 project.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankston, second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
it was
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Smith, second.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, Kevin, normally this wouldn't be a city council item, but because it's such a big number, I thought we better bring it before you. It's
Good afternoon. Kevin Beacott, Public Services Director. As the mayor had stated, we'll be doing this project. It's kind of an emergency. It is an emergency project. This is a stormwater pond that's in a private subdivision. Maintenance is typically the responsibility of the subdivision. Unfortunately, this pond hasn't really been maintained for about 30 years or so. And so we had a major washout of the control structure or overflow structure right there on Vic Road, so some of you may have seen that. And so we stepped in to go ahead and take care of that. But just wanted to show you this first picture. This is how the property looked back, at the beginning of April. This whole area that has trees, and if you look, I know there's a button here that we can push, but where the red area is in the center, that is all the retention area. So, got your thing. So this is just a picture that came off the property appraiser's website, just to show you what the existing condition was. To the north, we have Conyer Street, and then on the south end, we have Swallow Court. So, and then on the left-hand side, that's Vic Road over there. So this is what it actually looks like today. We've gone in and we've cleared out all the trees. And you can see where the red circle is, that is the washout area right over there where the pond overflowed and it washed out. The picture's kind of small, but there's actually a control structure, and I think the next picture I showed a little close-up. So this is the control structure or overflow structure. As the pond fills up, before it would overflow over into Vic Road, the water's supposed to go in there and be piped underneath, and then pipes underneath Vic Road. There's also a manhole, stormwater manhole that's right there in the lower left-hand corner of the picture. That's where that control structure, it's piped from there to the manhole. Oh, too fast. Okay, so starting at the beginning, 1987, this was the plan for the stormwater plan. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that there's a stream right here. There's a natural stream that comes through that whole area. And so what happened is when that overflow structure failed, it was a corrugated metal pipe. It just corroded, fell over. So we had some major storm events, and then that stream just kept on wanting to go right through there and, crossing Vic Road. So that's really part of what happened. If you look over here to the right, you see the riser pipe here in yellow. That is the overflow structure. It gets piped under this berm that was built as part of the project. Interestingly, this right here says natural ground. Before the subdivision, that right there was the way that ground was. That stream flowed right down across Vic Road. Vic Road has since been filled since the road was put in. I'm told it's probably 10, 15 feet of fill was put in there. I wasn't here, but some of you may remember that, so there was kind of a dip over there. And so what happened is that earthen dam just failed. There is some clay in there, and we do see that there's some red soils in there, so there is clay. But we need to replace all of this over here, that structure, that pipeline, that's a metal pipeline. Metal pipelines don't last. And then the underdrain system, as well as some other pipes, and we'll show you in a minute. Just to show you the density of how thick that the trees and stuff were in there. This is standing on Swallow Court right here, and you can't even see in there. And then one of my staff, they actually ventured in there and took a picture. So it's pretty overgrown. And also, to get a little bit of scale, there's the piece of equipment. Sorry for the dark picture, but that's a big excavator, and the trees are towering over it. So this is a picture after we finished removing the first phase of trees. We've since even removed the rest of the trees that were on there. We realized that we needed to come back and regrade the whole area. So just removing the trees that were in the fenced area wasn't enough. We have to go back because we have to make some better grades in order to be able to come in here in the future and maintain this pond. We have to keep, we'll put sod down and have to mow it. So we needed to remove the other trees. This is somewhat of our plan that we're proposing, and it's been updated a little bit, but this is what we need to replace. We have an underdrain structure I mentioned before. that overflow structure right over here, and then we have outfalls from the two drainage, one on Conyers Street and one on Swallow Court. And the head walls, those will all have to be replaced, as well as these pipes, because they'll be at a different elevation than what they are today. And they're old pipes, and they need to come out anyways. So this is just a picture showing the actual, standing there on Vic Road, and you see that overflow structure kind of just collapsed over, corroded out. This is standing right there at the, where the overflow structure and looking towards Vic Road. This is the manhole, and there's a pipe right under here and flows into that manhole. So what we need to do is we need to come and first replace this pipe over here that goes to that manhole right there, and then put a new concrete overflow structure in there. We then need, where the blue is, we need to replace this whole berm here with some clay material. Fortunately, we have some material that we can use. We're, one of the items that was on today's agenda, consent agenda, was for Golden Gem. We're excavating Golden Gem, so we're going to go and get some of the clay material that's over there and truck it over here to fill in this hole, rebuild that berm. So that will save us a little bit of money on that. We just have to get the trucking in order to bring it over. And so then the other thing that we're going to need to do is, again, replace these two pipes that come from these two drainage structures over here, replace the head walls as they are in the pond, regrade the pond, resod the pond. It will look really nice by the time we're finished. The one issue that we do have, and fortunately we only found one issue, and we're in the process of getting a surveyor out there tomorrow, but we have this one property that we've identified right now. They're about 10-foot encroachment into the common area, and so we've already talked to them. We're just going to set the property corners for them so we can get the fence moved. We don't know if any other ones, but we'll go out there and look, and, you know, depending on how far the encroachment is, if we can grade around them, we will. If not, we'll have to work with those property owners also. So that's pretty much what I have. The other thing that we had identified is that we're probably looking at certainly bringing it back here to the City Council for special assessment once we know what the final cost is. Right now, we're looking at approximately about $120,000. We asked for upset limit of $150 just in case some things come up, but we're thinking it's going to be closer to around the $120. With that, and then having to maintain it, we're looking at probably about a $15 per month per household. There's 75 homes in that area. Or $180 per year, depending on how that is. So that's what we'd be looking at.
Any questions for Kevin?
A couple. Where did all the soil go that washed away? Is that into our drainage system, and is that going to create an issue down the line, or is it cleared out?
Well, and that's a great question, because yes, it did go into our drainage system, and we found it. If you recall, back in September, I guess, we had the tropical or Hurricane Dorian that came through, and we had a lot of rain. We had on Vic Road, the drainage system just all of a sudden clogged up. We had to bring some equipment out there and unblock that. So it's most likely that that's where that came from, is from that washout, and that probably happened, or some of it happened during that time.
And again, not to gang up on assessments there, but the expense of that, I don't know what that cost us at that time, but it was created by this issue, which was a 30-year neglect, it sounds like, that they should have been. Were they paying in homeowner dues, and the homeowner, where is that money if they did? If not, then basically they've gotten away for a time for that. So if it's, you know, if it's amortized out, that should be a feasible way to do that, but should we include those expenses as well?
It was city staff who did the clean out, so the actual cost would be the time and labor and equipment that we used. So there was no additional cost outside of our normal operations. But the good point, what we found on, to talk about the Homeowners Association, we found that sometime in the 1990s, and I don't have the exact date, but the Homeowners Association was dissolved, and so from that time on, there hasn't really been any payment into it. Right now, that property is on the tax appraiser or property appraiser's website, and it's listed at, I think it's like less than $1 for annual taxes or something, but nobody really owns it. So that's one of the things that we're going to have to look at.
And we'll do that later.
Yeah.
Commissioner Smith?
Have the homeowners been notified about this possible assessment to cover the cost?
I'm not sure if they've been notified at this point.
Commissioner, they have not at this point. This is an emergency situation, and we would go through the normal process and try to bring that together, figure out why the HOA was dissolved, and figure out how we could, what our plan of action for the special assessment. But what happened in this situation is, if we wait for the rains to come again, and this could wash out Vic Road, and then we could be looking at probably $1 million fix. So we had to address the issue from a safety standpoint. Some of these drain lines that you see are city drain lines. We're responsible for those, the upkeep on those. The portion of the pond would fall under the HOA's maintenance piece, where they would maintain the pond in that situation, keeping it clean, and they haven't been doing that because they've been dissolved. So we as a city have come in to fix this problem, so that because we do have a safety issue. We have kids walking around, it's what we had too, and we have to get this fixed. So we've done everything we can to get it for the best cost we can by using dirt that we've already got, so we don't have that expense. We've found a vendor that we're able to piggyback on that went through the procurement process so that we can get the best price to fix it, so that we can make sure that we've done everything right there. And then what we've got to do is now, once we get the emergency situation fixed, go through the actual costs and figure out which portions of those should have belonged to the HOA for their maintenance piece, and which portion is actually a city piece that we should be maintaining. And then we can sit down and figure out what that assessment should be. This is very similar to Mainline Village. The concrete wall around Mainline Village there's an assessment on that, because their HOA also was dissolved. And so the city did a special assessment on that, and they're paying that back. The city, they borrowed money, and then they're paying that back to pay back for the wall and to keep the maintenance on the wall. So this will be similar. The problem with this was an emergency. We couldn't wait to go through it. We can't wait a 6 month or a year to go through that process. And part of this cost is a city cost anyway, the drains and the lines. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. Let's get the issue fixed, and then we'll have to assess and we'll have to have public hearings for those assessments. And I will tell you that we did reach out to the homeowners before we started construction. We were getting a lot of calls from several of the people in there about the safety issue. There were kids playing around it, and so that's how it started. And so, but we did reach out to all of the homeowners and to give them all the information, keep them up to date, that what we were doing, and that we were going to have to take the trees, and that there was a maintenance issue that would be a future maintenance piece that would be part of this process. So most of the homeowners have been notified, because a lot of them have come to us for the fix. So they have an idea. They just don't. We haven't gone through the process.
Okay, well, I understood it was an emergency. I mean, at first I thought it was a sinkhole until I realized what had taken place, and I just didn't want them to be blindsided that all of a sudden there was this expense. And I know we don't know what that's going to be right now. I just wondered if we had given them any indication that we're going to go ahead and fix it because of an emergency, and then we'll come back to you later and talk about an assessment and how it'll be taken care of. And then in the event that they feel like that they should not be a part of that process, then how would that be dealt with?
Well, in order to do the assessment, we'll have to have public hearings. So they'll get to see all the costs, they'll get to see all of the amortization schedules, they'll get to see how it works. We'll explain why they don't have an HOA. If they had an HOA, it would be that responsibility, but because they don't have an HOA, and this is an issue that had to be taken care of, we'll go through that whole process. So they'll get to have their public hearing, see all the cost, the city's responsibility, their responsibility. They'll get to see all of those pieces. But I will tell you that the phone calls that I received, I made sure that I explained to everyone that did call me and most of the people that were calling were the people that their properties butt up next to the pond. They knew that there was an issue, and they understood that their HOA, they didn't have an HOA anymore, and they knew that there was some responsibility, but again, they don't know the full responsibility, because part of it is the city's as well. So in the normal process, we would have went through this, we would have assessed the property through the public hearing process, and then we would have fixed it, and then they would pay through the assessment. But in this case, it was an emergency, so we had to
Do
go.
we know how many of these are owner occupied?
The ones I talked to were.
Okay.
They were more concerned. Renters don't seem to be as concerned. But we will, when we go through that process, we'll end up having those numbers as well.
Okay.
Mr. Becker?
No, I mean, if I kind of separate out my commentary, I mean, obviously, the issue at hand is dire. I mean, you know, I pass by there all the time, and you could clearly see that it was getting worse and worse very quickly. And with it coming up on rainy season, obviously, we need to get it fixed. So on the packet, it references just phase 2 specifically of this neighborhood. How many homes is in just the phase 2?
There are 75 homes in the Phase 2. So, and there's another part of the subdivision, Phase 1, which is to the north. And I will tell you that their stormwater pond, which is also right off of Vic Road, just north of here, is overgrown also. And so that may be something that.
Yeah, and so when we do have the kind of the follow-up to this, when we do talk about assessment, and Mr. Bass touched on it, it's just having all the facts at hand, right? So you have historical documents, right? Do we have the historical kind of breakout of responsibility, fiscal or financial responsibility between the two parties, the city and phase 2? And then itemized expense of what we're doing here, right? So how much is directly attributed to phase 2 owners versus what the city would be on the hook for? So if you can just provide that, make sure that we have that level of accounting, that would be what I would need for the next conversation.
And maybe while we're doing that, we ought to maybe take a look at cleaning out their pond, and if we need to figure out an assessment for that, Edward. I mean,
You're right, Mayor. That's what normally that's what we would do. We would go and assess, look at it. The HOA is dissolved. We need to come up with another plan of action. This case, unfortunately, because
No,
of the
right,
only-
but I'm saying for the other
but you're
pond
right,
before
we
it
will
gets
do
to-
both. Absolutely,
Yeah.
we'll do both, and then
Yeah, right.
the assessment, as you know, will only apply to those
Right, that are-
homeowners in phase 1 and phase 2. They'll be just responsible for their pieces. But again, I think Commissioner Becker, you're spot on with this. We need to find what's the city's portion, which pipes did we not maintain that we need to take care of from the city standpoint, and which part was their part. But we need to explain it. It's been years.
Yeah.
And so we need to explain it. You're right, and have all the information.
And then to Commissioner Smith's point, and obviously probably the most important, is communication to these residents. Because, you know, coming down Vic Road on the way here today, obviously you see this, right? And so naturally people are inquisitive. They're going to say, well, what's going on here, right? So it's, want to make sure, and especially if it's what's going on here, and oh, by the way, it's going to hit me in my pocket. So
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we have that conversation.
We did provide door hangers on the neighborhood before we brought in the construction equipment. We wanted to let them know. We also had to request that they not park cars on the street because we had some pretty big trucks coming through. So we did notify them of that. So, and we got a lot of calls, as Edward said, during that time.
Okay. All right. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, we'll look for a motion to authorize the city administrator to approve expenditures with all-terrain tractor service for the Martin Place Phase 2 Emergency Stormwater Pond Rehabilitation, not to exceed $150,000.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Becker, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, Pam. While she's coming up, you know, this, in the new land development code, you know, before the new land development code, speed bumps weren't allowed in the city of Apopka. So now that we are allowing speed bumps, we wanted to go ahead and get, you know, something in place. And I will say, you're going to hear me say this more than once, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Well, I said, Pam, take the Orange County program and massage it a little bit and see if we can come up with something that will work. So Pam has taken the county proposal or plan as far as speed bumps, humps, and so that's what she's going to be presenting for us. Pam Richmond.
Can I say, just mention a couple things before I start on this? I just wanted to let y'all know that CFX is going to be milling and resurfacing State Road 414 from Keene to Hawthorne and Hawthorne to 441, starting May 18th, and it's about a 155-day project. So
Can you send everybody an email
yeah,
on that?
they should
Thank
be
you.
wrapping that up near the end of the year. I mean, that would be about that time, but that's before they add in any kind of delays. But I just wanted y'all to know, if you get any calls about that, let me know, and I can either put you in contact with the PIO or the CEI on that. You know, we had problems. You were getting calls when we did 441, where they did 441 or DOT did, because we, you know, it's going right through Apopka, and you may get calls.
So they're milling and repaving?
Milling and
414?
resurfacing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty, I don't know that they're gonna ever close, you know, completely block off the road. If they do that, they'll do it at night, and there are a lot of rules that they have to follow. But there will be times where at least one lane will be blocked, so, during the day. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was about Sandpiper Road. And to thank the people that helped, particularly Sergeant Harmon and his guys, and Public Services. They were out there painting a line on the road at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then Sergeant Harmon and his guys stayed out there for several days monitoring traffic, because whenever you put in a new stop sign, there is a tendency to have rear-end collisions, but they watched, and we didn't have any. We're not quite finished. I think when they moved their variable message signs, I think, and you agree with me, right? That we need, well, we talk about it. I just don't want y'all to think that it's
Did you get that
just
on
me.
camera?
We want to put in 48-inch stop signs with flashing lights. Then we have warning signs up. We want to flash those too, because their variable message signs will go away. And it's kind of dark out there at night.
Yes.
So Edward and I have talked about adding a street light too. Just, you know, we just want it to be safe. Orange County sent me a nice email saying, thank you for doing this. You know, it's your road. We appreciate it. We have the same concerns you do. So it's still kind of a work in progress, but the incidence of people not seeing a flashing message board and stop signs and other stuff, those have gone way down. Yes? Okay. So we feel
And just
good
a
about
question on that as well. There's also a lot of tree branches on the eastbound coming down that hill that kind of block that, that first warning sign before the
Right.
stop sign. Is there any regulation to, or are we allowed to basically trim those up? I think that would be a help as
Yeah,
well.
we can trim those up.
Okay.
I'll talk to Kevin and his guys, and we'll, you know, when we put in, because we want to make sure that you can see that. You
Mm-hmm.
can't see it, it's a problem.
I'll save the rest of my comments for my time later. Thank you very much.
So now I'm going to talk about speed
So,
humps, and this is,
so, Pam, were those questions or were those command statements to the back of the room? Right?
it's a partnership.
I'm kidding.
We work together often, and I don't always have all the information. Sometimes he knows things that haven't made its way to me yet, which is the same with the speed hump program. This is a kind of a joint effort between community development, police, fire, public services, because we all have a role in it. And yes, we're modeling on Orange County's. The benefits to that are we can piggyback off of their contract. They've already established a deal to get these things installed, and it's pretty efficient. So I'm going to take you through some things, and I'm going to bring Steve up, and he's going to talk about what his part. Like you just said, we changed our land development code so that we can do speed bumps. And it's section 5.13.1.c.8, and I put that in there because it shows specifically speed humps, not speed bumps. We don't do speed bumps anymore, it's speed humps, as a traffic calming measure. Speed humps are raised asphalt platforms with 3 inches in height and 12 feet long. They're placed across a road where traffic calming is needed. If more than one hump is needed, design standards specify they need to be spaced about 400 feet apart. There are 4 basic criteria that need to be met for speed humps to be considered for traffic calming. First, the road must be a local or residential road with average daily traffic volume of 400 vehicles to 3,000 vehicles per day. This is one area where we deviated from Orange County. There's minimum is 800, but they're thinking about lowering theirs too. Second, the posted speed limit has to be 30 miles an hour or less. Third, the road has an observed 85th percentile speed of 5 miles per hour or more over the posted speed limit. And fourth, the road has to have a maximum width of 24 feet. In addition to meeting the 4 basic criteria, there's a process that needs to be followed. It started with a citizen-initiated request and petition signed by 66% of the homeowners within a subdivision or along a particular roadway wanting a speed hump. Upon receipt by the city, the program manager verifies the petition and contacts PD to conduct a traffic study that will determine if traffic conditions support the request for the speed humps. Staff that may include PD, fire department, waste management, community development, and public services will discuss the findings, the study findings, and provide input to PD and the program manager, who will make a decision whether to recommend installation of a speed hump. If there's a technical issue that needs to be resolved, we can engage one of the traffic engineers that y'all just approved to assist in any technical traffic engineering. And then we have public services to help if we have any design issues. And then finally, the recommendation is brought to City Council to either approve or not approve. And now I want Sergeant Harmon to come up and talk about circumstances where we wouldn't put in speed humps, and talk about his experience and also how he does the traffic study in the 85th percentile.
All righty. So I've been a cop for 17 years, been in traffic, in charge of that as far as a sergeant goes for 3 years. Didn't spend a lot of time in traffic exactly until then. At that time, I was getting a lot of requests. Hey, they're speeding in my neighborhood down the streets, and there's some times where, they were definitely requesting speed humps. They see it in different areas and they're wanting it, so this is a good thing to be able to have. I agree, because there's times where we can only do so much enforcement. On that note, I had purchased a data collector, which we have one that's pole mounted that Public Works will mount for us. It's kind of like a hidden box that will keep track of the traffic count that we're needing for this as well, and it'll get our speeds, so we can obviously determine our 85th percentile. And for us in traffic, we're looking to see, well, what time of day is the biggest issue, what are the highest speeds, so when we can focus our time and make a difference. Sometimes it's more of a perceived thing where there's a couple of people that are speeding, other times it's a lot more. So again, there have been some areas where we've seen where this would help, where we've gone and done some enforcement, we leave, we'll do a study again, see that it's gone down, we come back and, people, get back out there again. If you don't see the cops there all the time, then they'll start speeding again. But yes, for the city for the longest time didn't have this even available. So it's good that I think it's available to them as far as the code allows it now. So as she was saying, it's not just everything meets the check boxes for the criteria. Even if it does that, there might be things that we can't foresee, all these what ifs that we can't foresee right now, where we might look case by case basis at a particular street and say, this might not be good as far as trash pickup for Public Works. It might not be good for the fire department as far as getting to somewhere. For us, we might look at it as, is there an on-street parking issue for vehicles? Is there an issue, safety issue as far as this is on a hill, down a hill? Is this somewhere where somebody might be more prone to joyride and then hit it fast and lose control? Is something to that effect we have to look into. So again, for things that we can't foresee, we'll need to just all convene, even if they meet the check marks on everything, and make sure that we all agree that it's still good enough to go. All right, so for the 85th percentile, so this printout here is just one sheet of what we get when we do our speed study. So you can see the top box area, the bottom right, it's kind of blurry, but it says total vehicles. So we can figure out, again, our total vehicles, and we'll just figure out how many days that it was out there and do our division and figure out what our traffic volume is in there. The bottom of the middle section on the bottom chart there shows the 85th percentile. So this particular one was at Lake Francis, posted speeds 25, the 85th percentile is 26 miles an hour. So this would not meet criteria because it's not over 30 miles an hour. It's not 5 miles over the posted speed limit as far as the 85th percentile. 85th percentile helps out for traffic engineering a lot of times in setting roadway speed limits. It's what people naturally do. If you took away all speed limit signs, if you took away traffic and what do people naturally want to drive, is what they usually determine as the 85th percentile. Usually they'll say like 5% of the vehicles below, most of the vehicles below and above that are within 5 miles per hour of each other. So we very rarely have the higher numbers. Either way, we can get all these. We usually put it out for a week, so we can get every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so on and so forth throughout the day, so we can get a good look if there's an issue or not. And again, also we can do the vehicle count. So that's what we can get out. And this is just, again, one of the sheets that we do, but it's as it pertains to the speed humps, we can get all of this, like I said, in about a week. We have one data collector. We have a traffic monitor that we put out. There's one that we had out at Sandpiper that will also collect data. That's a one-way. The pole-mounted one will get both directions, which we need for this. So again, that could take 1 week. If we use our speed trailer, that'll be 2 weeks, right? We put it facing one way, flip it around to the other one. If we were inundated with a bunch of requests, if we needed to purchase another pole-mounted one, if the price is similar to last time, it was around $3,000. But I still feel that just with the amount of studies that I've already done, we might be able to negate having to do them because I should already have a lot of them on file. And then once they go through the other counts and criteria, if it meets it, I think that we're probably fine with what we have. And like I said, at the most, we could probably do one more unit, but we'll get to that if we need to. But I think we're good with what we have.
Do you want to talk about, you had mentioned to me some of the places we're talking about, the places that you've already done?
Okay, so as far as the...
It's a typical situation.
Again, I've done a lot of places as far as how it pertains to, with this criteria of 30 miles an hour or less. Mostly, obviously, it's residential streets. There are, with all the ones that I have looked through, there were about 5 on my list that would have met our criteria. As far as the number of vehicles per day, I'm sorry, actually it went up because at the time I was looking at hers off of the 800. So there's a couple more. So there's probably about 7 or 8 that I've already done throughout the city that would meet it as far as the traffic volume per day, and the 85th percentile being 5 miles an hour or greater. So again, I don't think there's going to be a whole bunch to have to do, and because these are any time that someone is calling and complaining of speeding on my street. Now, we don't know how this is going to be when it gets broadcast. Are a lot more people going to all of a sudden, inundating us with, hey, I want to speed bump in my neighborhood. And anyhow, the list that she has on here would be how she's already determined as far as they meet it as far as the traffic, the speed limit and the traffic volume. So you can see this list here. I have not done, a lot of those, but I have done some. Christiana Avenue, I know meets it as far as the last study I've done. We know if you're around, the end of Christiana, we've had problems before them going into the brick wall at the end of that. So Woodfield Oaks, I think I've done that. Lake Francis, and you can see one of them on there. Some of these if I had that are old, we'll redo it because you have different people who are moving in or new neighborhoods that are being built, so the traffic volume is different. Lake Francis is usually a cut-through complaint because of cars coming from, the west side, cutting through over to go to Vic Road, and then, of course, Arrow Parkway. And then Arrow Parkway is a different animal. We'll get to it a different time. But any questions for me on this part?
Okay, any questions for Pam or for?
I think she's got more to it.
We
but-
need to get to the part that y'all really need to.
What?
I want to talk about the funding part.
Okay,
real
sure.
quick.
Thanks, Sergeant.
So, so these are the potential costs. I told you the speed hump costs $3,500. Piggyback on Orange County. The warning signs we'd have to do, Bo told me they'd be around $300 if we installed them. Steve talked about if we need to purchase equipment, that's a kind of wait and see. And then if we need additional engineering services, that would be another $500. But I think for us, we just need to think that it's going to be around $4,000 per speed hump. And then how are we going to pay for these? Orange County, they require their residents to pay for half. right now, we don't have a funding source, so here are some options. We could go the Orange County route, have the residents that are either in the HOA or impacted and desire the speed hump pay 50%. The city could pay 100%, or you could just have the residents that want this to pay 100%. Again, we don't have any budget right now. You could, I have no idea how many of these are going to come in. I'll tell you that Orange County said last year they logged 420 requests and 75 vetted out as appropriate. I'm not sure how many of those they actually installed because, again, the residents are expected to pay. Now, at Orange County, as you remember, each commissioner, each district gets $50,000 to spend on however they want. So Public Services pays 50% out of their budget. Residents, if they can't come up with their 50%, they can ask the county commissioner if he or she wants to contribute. It's not usually, a large sum of money. You're only putting in 2, sometimes 3 speed humps, maybe even 1. And the commissioner will fund part of it, but we don't have districts and we don't really have that option. The other thing is when the residents have to come up with their money, the comptroller assesses them, I guess, through the property appraiser, and we don't have that option available to us either. So when we ask our residents to pay, they're pretty much going to have to give us a check for their part, and then we'll move forward. You can, like I said, or like it says here, appropriate on a case-by-case basis and not establish any budget, or a nice round number might be $25,000 or $50,000 just to see. If when the money's gone, it's gone. That's all we do that year. Or we could look for a new funding source. I've got my feelers out for grants. And then another thought that I had was, we're getting money off the on-street media, and I know that that was designated to do some sidewalks, but we can use impact fee money to do new sidewalks, and then I know that Public Services has money budgeted for sidewalk repair, so that would be a revenue stream that, just until we see, I really don't know how many we're going to get, but we've had interest in the past. And so after y'all talk about that, then I guess I can tell you what I would recommend your motion to be.
Oh, well, Commissioner Smith, you want to start us out? Any thoughts?
Well, I want to make sure first I understood that she's going to increase our discretionary fund to $50,000.
You didn't get the wax out of your ears.
Likewise, several residents have also called and asked me about speed bumps, and of course my response always was them that the city of Apopka doesn't allow speed bumps. And so now that we changed the rule, I've got to find another out. I guess my concern is there is no budgeting process in place, and then if we require the residents to pay 50% of the cost of it in areas where there's not an equal amount of residents, and when I'm thinking about Lake Avenue and Michael Gladden, which is not a regular residential street, but needs speed bumps, how would we fund that? So that's my problem.
We've talked about that too. I mean, everything's not, if it's a big HOA like Rock Springs Ridge, they have 1,400 homes out there, and if they decided they wanted some speed humps at their entrance, that HOA could pay for it. But if you're talking about 10 homes along Michael Gladden and they want 3 speed humps, it would be up to you if you wanted to appropriate money to pay 100% of the speed bumps. Or the city could take situations like that that are not in residential areas. We could just say, this is a city road and a city concern, and of course still reach out to the residents but make that a city safety project, and then that's an option to take on 100% of those situations. The roads that I showed you, these are all not, a lot of them are in neighborhoods, but they're not within HOAs. They're roads that we collect traffic data on. They all have a posted speed limit of 25 or 30 miles an hour and an average daily traffic of somewhere between 400 and 3,000. So, you know, if it's a road like this, that I think Michael Gladden's on there.
Yes, it is. I see Lake Avenue,
you
Michael
know,
Gladden.
Those are the kind of roads that we could take in as a city project.
And I like that idea. Maybe we could, like you said, look at some grants to maybe fund those that would be a city responsibility or a safety issue for the city. But I do want to make it clear that the people in Rock Springs Ridge do not speed.
Yes, sir, I'm aware of that.
Especially commissioners that live in Rock Springs Ridge. Mr. Becker?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of along those lines. So, I mean, it's, you know, in an HOA like Rock Springs Ridge or my subdivision, it's clear to say, okay, 66%, okay, I'm going to go to each one of my homeowners. If I get 66%, okay, we can go forward. How does it work like on say a Christiana or a Onditch, whatever the case might be? How are you, because on Christiana itself, you've got neighborhoods that come off of Christiana, but you don't really necessarily have a whole material amount of people that live on Christiana itself. So how does this policy address that?
That would be one of the unusual ones. We might have to hold a public meeting and ask generally, are people, you're going to have, whenever we put speed humps in, unless it's a project that we take on, you're going to have someone from the community that is driven to get this done to go around and talk to their neighbors. They have to, there has to be some kind of consensus that comes out of the community to do this, because speed humps, everybody doesn't like them.
Yeah, so what I would be interested in is just some very clear language, because, you know, again, in HOAs that are clean and you can box it around there, you know how to do that. But even in Errol, for example, you've got so many different HOAs. Is 66% of everyone in Errol, or is it of one HOA that's near where that road is? So there's some complexity that presents itself when you just apply this simply. It's funny, Onditch is up there. I'm sure Mr. Emmel would probably pay out of pocket himself for all of these things on Onditch Road up there. He sent me a video of a guy running through his front yard from one of his cameras on his house. I mean, it was bad. And then, because I fully feel like when this gets released publicly, people are, because I see that in my own neighborhood, right? You get people on the Facebook and they're like, oh, did you see so-and-so just haul off through here on this road? So when this becomes available and they say, hey, I got to get 66% petition signatures, what would we require on that petition? Would
Orange
it be
County,
just,
I have their sample,
Okay.
and it's pretty much their signature, their address, and that they are in favor of speed humps. But again, I think that's why they need, for what you just said about everybody's going to want one, I think that's why it's important that they contribute financially. Otherwise, we're going to have speed humps everywhere, and we're going to find out how much people like them and don't like them.
right? No,
So-
I completely agree. I mean, if we're kind of taking this first step, modeling after Orange County, and Orange County's is the 50-50, I mean, I think that's the first step we go, and then see how that plays out. And to your point, I mean, people need to put the money where their mouth is in terms of their true desire to have these things in the neighborhood.
I think they're going to have to ask for it, and we can look at one or two criteria right away. Is the posted speed right? And while they're getting their petition together, I can ask Sergeant Harmon to go out and collect the data and see if it even meets the 85th percentile part of it. You know,
And then,
we can start the vetting.
and then not necessarily a question, just confirmation, because it was a question coming in, but I think Sergeant Harmon addressed it during his commentary. So, because naturally when you're doing a traffic study and you're trying to see what the speeds are, You just picture an officer there with a radar gun or something like that. So it is a hidden box that's fixed there that can be left there over a period of time that judges speed and count. And that's your data set to kind of meet that requirement, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because then, so you have that four kind of prescriptive pieces of criteria that are pretty binary in nature. Either it checks that box or it doesn't. For what you described in terms of, because that was my next question, because we always were kind of, it was alluded to the fact that emergency vehicle concerns or trash pickup concerns about not having these speed humps. So you have your kind of prescriptive requirement things that are binary, but then you mentioned some more discretionary kind of feedback. So when staff looks at that and does that analysis, how is that, if it's not approved, how is that then communicated back to the body requesting it? And do you expect any kind of friction there? I just want to.
After we've had our internal conversation, we can relay back, we can do it one of two ways. We can relay back to the folks that want a speed hump that we can't recommend this, and we're not going forward, or we can tell them that and say, but we can still take it to city council with a recommendation of don't approve. You know, we can still leave it up to y'all. We'll give our reasons why we don't think it's a good idea, or recommend to them some other measure. There are lots of different traffic calming measures that we could implement. I'll give you an example in Orange County. On Dudley, which is way far north, the posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour. Homes like you were talking about, small, older homes, a narrow road, and they want speed humps because people do fly there, and I'll have to tell you, it's all of us that live in Tangerine, we're doing it to ourselves. And they met the criteria, traffic volumes and speed, but Orange County felt like that was not the best solution, so they did large pavement markings and more, they added some speed limit signs, and it seems to be working. So, you know, we can recommend something else, tell them no, or just leave it up to you.
As you were talking there, I kind of mitigated my own concern because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, so you all do the analysis, then it's presented back to council, council makes the final decision? Or are you making a decision at the staff level?
They get the analysis, then they go to the homeowner, say, okay, you qualify, now give me 60, or do they get 66 first? You're first, and then to the homeowners. We're gonna
tell them that they're gonna have to pay.
Yeah, somebody calls up and says, hey, I want a speed hump, then Steve will go out and do his thing.
And I don't mind sooner than later, as soon as we start getting interest, I don't mind, hey, let's just find out right now, we can save some time, and then that way I can maybe keep us from getting, backlogged on places to go to.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, if it's a no kind of decision, if staff does analysis and they say that we really shouldn't do this, there's an escalation path up to council for whatever reason that they could have relief at some point. Like, and I would assume that we would go with your recommendation on most occasions. I'm just saying if an HOA was adamant about, hey, we're not satisfied with what staff is telling us, we would rather have council make that decision. Is that what's in this policy as written, or I just want to make sure that I understand what our policy is going to say.
That's what I would propose, that if we, as staff, think that it's not a good idea, we would try and dissuade the folks that wanted speed humps. But if they were insistent and they had 50% in cash, they can bring it to you. We're not going to do anything until we have their money. Y'all can approve it, and we can say, yes, it's a good thing, but we're not going to move forward until, they've ponied up.
And the other thing is, based on how much, first of all, it's not a great budget year, but I wanted to at least bring it forward. So I think there'll be two things that it's limiting. It'll be the homeowners deciding whether they want it, and second is, after we've got the 12th speed hump in, we've run out of money, so you need to reapply, or we need to look at it again next year. So I think there'll be an automatic limit, even based on, whatever money we put toward the programs. I think we're gonna run out of money before we run out of speed humps, I think.
Yeah, and so on the second to last paragraph, the last sentence says, finally, the request would be brought to city council for approval. I'm just trying to get clarification of, are we reviewing all requests and we just have a recommendation from staff? Or if it meets the criteria, staff is okay from an emergency vehicle, waste management vehicles, and you all are okay with it, is it still going to come before us?
Yes, sir.
From a funding perspective?
No, just for your approval, and so that you know
Okay.
that we would be using money from however we set it up.
Okay, then I'm
Funds.
clear.
The final decision is yours.
Okay. Mr. Bankston?
Yeah, they asked some of my concerns. I had heard a lot of concern in South Apopka as well, specifically for those things. Again, sometimes it can be the one person, but I heard that from several. So I think it's good that we have a policy in place for this. Just other question, is there any data to show reduced policing needs due to less traffic incidents by having speed bumps? What justifies that?
Yeah, I say absolutely. We don't have it, so I can't say 100% is it going to go down, but they're for a reason. It's to slow people down. And again, people aren't going to like it when we have to come out there. We'll put our speed monitor out there. Hey, remind people to slow down. We'll come out there, and when they start getting tickets, they're not going to enjoy that either. So by the speed humps, they're going to naturally be able to slow down, and now everyone's happy, and we don't have to come out there and no one has to get any tickets. And like you said, and everybody should be safer because of it. And so I think that it would be less of a burden on us to have to go back, because a lot of the ones that I have, they're repeat customers. Okay, I'm getting, the chief will attest to it, that I've got like assignments for my guys, and we'll try to revisit things before I get the complaints. Hey, let's go back out to Caledonia, or go somewhere in Rock Springs Ridge, or in any other aerial estates and so forth before we get the complaints and get ahead of it, because it's going to happen again, where, we hit it for a little while, and then we go away, we hit other places, and then they're back at it again. So with this, I think that it should help.
And there's no real expected cost benefit because we still have the same officers on duty. It's just it will free them up as a resource to handle other issues. Is that
Exactly.
the right way to
Also,
look at
because
it?
we have limited time, a lot of times, we have 3 officers in the traffic unit, and myself. They handle every traffic crash in the city that comes out, as well as their own traffic homicide investigations. And then if they need help with patrol with anything. So they can be working a complaint area in a neighborhood for speed, and all of a sudden a crash comes out, they have to leave. So they were there for 5 minutes, or so on and so forth. So again, this will help out because we can't always be there to watch everything.
Right.
And Commissioner Banks, to your point, the speed humps do help because they were having a problem with dirt bikes speeding down Central Avenue. And so the county came in and put up speed humps in their section of the road. So they moved from Central to Hawthorne where there are no speed humps.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess what maybe what I'm looking for maybe is kind of a funding, what you think, and then, we'll obviously have to look at the money. This would go into place in October. We don't have any money this year, but what I'd like to do maybe is come up with what you think is a decent, we want to do 50/50, and then what I can do is, wink, if we hire an attorney today, then we could have him start drafting something, but at least kind of have a, consensus here on the city council as to what you want that to look like. Are you okay, like, with the criteria? Are you okay with the funding? I mean, what funding would you like to look at? And kind of and then the ordinance, as far as the money, obviously, each year we would put that in the budget, so that we can put that aside until then.
And you said it's approximately about a $4,000 cost per speed
Yeah.
bump. So if it was 50,000, then that's 25 if we go 50/50 cost.
Correct.
And then we'd know we have that many to work on.
I like the proposal that you presented, as you said, it won't be for this budget year, for the upcoming budget, of setting aside the $50,000, and let's see what kind of response, what kind of requests we receive, how far that go, and I like the idea of the 50/50 costs, but also allow us the latitude to be able to,
Certain neighborhoods we could go.
it's certain roads that we could go and do 100% if we deem that that's necessary because of where the location is.
And could we, Edward, what about if we did like a 50 match, and then we had maybe a 25 discretionary to bump that to 100% or something? I mean, just as a starting point. Would that, so we could have, for most of the neighborhoods, it'd be 50/50, and if we wanted, because of unique circumstances, maybe we could go to the 100% with that extra little pot of money.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And I think if you were, so I'm sorry, Jim. If you would couple that with maybe having a list of roads, like the ones that I showed you, we know right now are not neighborhood roads that might need, those would just be roads that are eligible for 100% funding, the ones that don't have an HOA attached to them, or special circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, but
You know,
we're-
kind of leave that open for you.
But it's going to be a funding, issues. I mean, we're not going to have unlimited funds, so the neighborhoods that we feel the most, need is the ones we want to get taken care of first, and so we've got to prioritize, as a city council, and as Sergeant Harmon said, we've got some already kind of identified, and we could look at those, bringing those forward first, and then look at the funding when we get to that point.
Well, I think because of the funding, we definitely ought to prioritize those that are able to do the 50-50 match.
Yeah, sure.
That we would do them first as opposed to the ones where we have to do 100%.
Yeah.
I think Orange County prioritizes things around schools and
Yeah.
playgrounds, and
Yeah.
they give preference to those two.
Commissioner Becker?
Yeah, I mean, without introducing a whole bunch of complexity to it, I would just go as this first step of what Orange County is doing, the 50-50, and then
Okay.
the criteria I'm comfortable with. And
Okay.
then as we really kind of punch into the details here, you kind of have at least 3 different kind of classifications of roadways. You have stuff that fits nicely within an HOA / kind of planned development kind of community. You've got roadways that kind of like the downtown area where it's all residential, direct residential on those roadways.
Yeah, right.
And then the kind of the tertiary one is roadways like Christiana where it's a majority of individual planned developments that are scattered off of it versus a whole bunch of direct items there. So we may have different approaches for all 3 of those classifications, but.
Just real quick, a lot of times for programs like these, you wouldn't normally use them on collector roads like Ondich.
Right.
Michael Gladden, typically not, because that's an approach road coming in and going out of the downtown. But,
Well, it has to be under 30 miles an hour, too.
correct, yeah. I did have a question from the internet, asking, and I can probably pretty much answer this, but I just wanted to bring this up because we are getting those questions.
Sure.
It says, in lieu of the 66% of homeowners, would you accept 66% of HOA board member approval? And I'd have to recommend no, because.
Right, yes. No, it's got to be all homeowners, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So
And Mayor, I was a little concerned there for a moment because you said we were going to hire an attorney today, so I thought you was about to say that he was going to help cover that cost.
Shh, we got to get him on board first. Okay.
Yeah, because to that point though, and Orange County doesn't allow for that, correct? Because I guess the point would be is if a board makes a decision and they have proxy or they have quorum of their membership, that's a different story. But if they're, I guess clarifying, Orange County doesn't have that provision in what their policy is, correct? Okay.
Okay, so we got some direction there, Pam, and so you bring back an ordinance for us, and then, we'll, obviously, as we go through, we start to work, matter of fact, Friday, we'll start looking at budget, so we'll start to build a budget, and so we'll, is there a number you'd like us at least to start with, to put in the budget?
The 50,000.
50,000, that sound okay? Okay, all right. So, Edward, got to work your magic.
I got it.
Thank you, Pam. Appreciate that. Okay. So, no vote there. Okay, next up, public ordinance number 2747. Linda?
Ordinance number 2747, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the future land use element of the Apopka Comprehensive Plan of the City of Apopka, changing policy 3.1.h, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Okay.
Mayor, 1 second. Go back to, did you want to take action on?
That's what I was,
Well, I mean, I think we're just.
Do you wanna take
she's
action
gonna
or
bring, she's just
bring
gonna
it
bring
back?
back yeah, I didn't know if we needed to really,
Okay.
yeah. David, any changes to the ordinance number 2747?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Now that we're over the hump of the meeting, we're going to discuss ordinance number 2747.
Wow, that was good.
David Moon, I never.
It is hump day, so.
There you go. We can speed up.
January 15th of this year, the City Council held a hearing to transmit an amendment to policy 3.1.h of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan. And City Council authorized, approved that the ordinance for transmittal to state agencies. The Florida Department of Economic Development had one comment among the state agencies regarding the amendment. And if you recall, one area of the city proposed for the eligibility for the high-density residential up to 25 units per acre would automatically be assigned that designation and become HDR 25. The Department of Economic Opportunity stated that the city really needs to do a future land use map amendment to accommodate that designation to the property. So the language to the policy was changed to make this area of the city along 6th Street and McGee Avenue as one of the eligible areas. It's no longer automatic should you choose to adopt Ordinance 2747. And quickly, the amendment creates two components of the high-density residential designation to an HDR 15 up to 15 units per acre, and then the HDR 25, a minimum of 15 units per acre and up to 25 units per acre. And the greatest part of the reason for presenting this to City Council is a number of the apartment developers in the market and indicated that based on market changes, there's a need for higher densities within areas that were designated for urban development. So planning staff identified 5 areas. The first was the 6th Street and McGee Avenue area. The second was the 429 US 441 area, formerly known as the 429 West area, now known as the Floridian Town Center, or Floridian Town Center. The third was the area south of Boy Scout Road to the west of Apopka Road. We call that the East Shore Parkway area. And then the fourth was the area just south of the Florida Hospital, Advent Health Hospital. And the last was an area within the Oak Point North development, which is south of area that's proposed for commercial within their project. The Development Review Committee and Planning staff had recommended adoption of the policy, and with the proposed change, continue that recommendation to adopt ordinance number 2747. And I'll address any comments that City Council may have. You also received in the public comments a letter from the Charter Oaks HOA with some current concerns about that first area along 6th Street and McGee.
Okay, any questions for David? Okay, Linda, why don't you go ahead and read into the record
Okay.
from Charter Oaks.
This is from Angela Pusey, 744 South Christiana Avenue. My name is Angela Pusey. I'm the current Secretary Treasurer of Charter Oaks Homeowners Association and have been a Charter Oaks resident since 1986. Being a high-risk group for COVID-19 exposure, I respectfully request that my notice to speak be read into the record at such time deemed appropriate by City Council's agenda. This is submitted in both my official capacity representing 18 Charter Oaks HOA member properties and on my own behalf as a concerned citizen of Apopka. Graciously responding to my request for notification of the second reading of ordinance number 2747, David Moon of Apopka Planning and Zoning called to advise me the matter would be discussed at the City Council meeting on May 6th at 1:30 p.m. During that call, he explained that the ordinance language was revised since the first reading and now requires the owner of parcel 152.128.0000.00001 on 6th and Alabama to make application to the City of Apopka in order to increase HDR. As I write this, I have not read the revised language coming before City Council. Therefore, I ask your indulgence as I make our concerns and requests known for your consideration. Apopka Project 53, City Center Apartments, parcel 152.128.0000.00001, remains of major concerns for area residents. Apopka's development projects listed dated 2/11/2020 notes project status as conceptual and development plan as multifamily apartments, 246 dwelling units on 13 acres. While increasing density may make a project more viable for a developer, living with what it may bring as a daunting possibility for area residents. Necessary infrastructure is yet to be determined, but increased density promises increased traffic and noise, among other unpleasant possibilities. Increased density also necessitates smaller units on this parcel, which would seem at odds with city center residential plans previously touted by as, quote, luxury or upscale, unquote. Frankly, myriad changes in city center development original concept gives current area residents little confidence in what a multifamily apartment complex on this property might actually become in the long run. Our concerns about HDR are magnified in realities of South Apopka's crime rate and recent COVID-19 experience. City officials have taken careful investment steps to preserve Highland Manor's Victorian building as a landmark of Apopka and city center development. A recent article in Apopka's newsletter, edition 4, tells of 137 carp released to improve Martin's Pond. This is highly commendable, yet long before Highland Manor was moved to its pastoral setting of Martin's Pond, this area developed into our unique pastoral neighborhood within city limits. Low-density residential is in keeping with the pastoral aesthetic of the existing neighborhood and would be good for residents and visitors alike. We therefore ask city officials to take careful steps to preserve the existing pastoral character of our low-density residential neighborhood as city center development unfolds. Charter Oaks HOA respectfully requests that ordinance number 2747, Exhibit A, Policy 3.1.H, proposed amendment to language and map 1-1 be appropriately amended in such a way to ensure parcel 152128000000001 located on East 6th Street and Alabama Avenue remain HDR-15. Charter Oaks HOA strongly opposes development of multifamily apartments on parcel 152128000000001. Reference Charter Oaks HOA letter dated March 2nd, 2020 to Mayor Nelson and City Council members.
Okay, and I know I had, David, you talked to her this morning.
Yes, planning staff also had a meeting with her and several other members of Charter Oaks, as well as a resident that lives just to the west of Charter Oaks,
Okay.
Mr. Faircloth.
Okay. Okay, any questions for David? Okay, anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, look for a motion.
So, I mean, I don't have any questions of David. I mean, I still want to renew the concern that I had when this piece of business was brought up the first time, right? So we've got, I think, 5 different areas that we have that we're talking about here. And to increase 10 dwelling units per acre under the guise that it's because market forces have shifted, causing increased density, I just don't see it. You know, we have apartment complexes that have built in Apopka recently, Martin Ridge. We've got the Alta East that has come. We've got the apartment complex that's going in off of Apopka Boulevard. So we definitely see demand and people coming in to construct under our current density classification. Mm-hmm. You know, if you just kind of looked at this and just assumed, this is very conservative, but if you assumed every single one of these maps was a 40-acre piece of property, you know, you got, what, 400 increased dwelling units if you assume 80% development rights on that property. Mm-hmm. You times that by, you know, 2.9, I think, is the average people per dwelling within the city of Apopka based off of census data. You're looking at, you know, 1,100 additional people per thing just by what we're changing on paper here. You extrapolate that across these 5 locations, you're looking at just a 10% increase in our population just off of making a change from 15 to 25. And there's really, outside of just this anecdotal kind of developers want this, or they won't come and develop in Apopka, historical of the past 4 years that I've set up here, I haven't seen that to prove that that's the case. To echo the person who sent in a letter, I echo the concerns around infrastructure, concerns around emergency personnel. introducing 5,000 additional more people to the books. I don't know what the ratio is for what Chief was wanting for officers per capita, but obviously that increases that demand. We're already undercut there. Obviously the density, whether it's vertical or horizontal, is just going to require us more equipment from an emergency services perspective. There's just a lot of concern here, and I just don't see the compelling piece for me to say, yeah, we should change our policies to do this. So I just, that's where my head is at, my point of view. When we had this piece of business the last time, I heard from a lot of people that had the same point of view, so.
I have to say I agree in this area specifically. Maybe a couple of the other areas I feel a little more flexible in, but, again, for these very reasons and looking at that, I'm more concerned for, what was just expressed there, specifically in that downtown area. Off of Boy Scout Road and that area over in there, I'm not as concerned because there's a little more kicking room. It doesn't affect people as much who are already, have lived there for, quite some time. So I do have concern about it.
So, I think, but it's an up to, right? Right now, we're at 15. If we do nothing, it's up to 25. And I know that, Jim, a couple of
It would be
folks.
15 to 25, the
Correct.
minimum being 15. So why would someone ask for up to 25?
They'd have to come
when they
back
could
to
do
us.
15. But
They'd have
yes,
to come back to us to get above
Correct.
15. It's not a guarantee to 25. It's a come back, let's look at the project, and then we can determine
they would
whether.
have to apply for a future
Yeah.
land use map amendment,
Yeah.
which would require hearings before the Planning Commission and the City Council. So if the character of a particular area would change, such as the area south of Boy Scout turned into residential homes at
Single family.
half-acre lots, City Council could say that HDR 25 is not compatible with that character of the area and not grant that density. So you have some ability to review the request and deny it in the future.
But doesn't HER 25 say a minimum of 15 dwelling?
A minimum
Up
of
to.
15 up to 25, because if they're going to develop at 10 units per acre, then they should apply for the up to 15 units per acre.
Mr. Smith?
I like the idea of having an option to go from 15 to 25. My only drawback is, what are we saying legally if we decide as a council no to the 25 and hold them to the 15? It's kind of like when I asked the question about, can we stop these dollar stores, and you said as long as they met the guidelines, we could not. So I don't want us to get into the same situation with going from 10 to 15, and we said, no, we don't want you to do the 25, remain at 15, and then we're at a legal point where we cannot do that.
That would be a good question for the city attorney, since it's a legal question, but the chair is empty.
Yeah, one of the things that occurs with the comprehensive plan is that you have that ability to say no without necessarily any justification at the comprehensive plan. At the zoning part, you really don't, because the land use would have already been established at that point. And I think, Commissioner Smith, I think you hit the nail on the head. You can do already up to 15. So if you need 1 or 2 more dwelling units per acre to make a project work, you could apply for that up to 25, and you might get 16, 17, 18 units per acre. You still have to park it, you still have to have the open space, you still have to have parks and recreation facilities on the sites. And some of those other areas could work, like Commissioner Bankson said. Some others may not, but it's an optional at least at this point.
Right, but like you said, suppose they meet all those guidelines. They have the parking space, they have the playground, the recreational areas, but we still say no. Are we legally?
With the comprehensive plan change, you can say no.
We can say no without, okay.
Correct. And typically, when somebody does come in for a comp plan change, we usually request a reason why they need it, which usually means that they would end up coming in with a conceptual plan that justifies why and how they're actually doing it. And then at that stage, you can say yay or nay, and they're back to 15.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still struggle because we always fall back on this example, right? We always say, a case where they need one or two more, that's not how the policy's written, right? So if we're truly creating this policy off of a one or a two more thing, that's a completely different story than 10 more per acre. And again, on the Bronson property, that's a material increase. That's a huge piece of property. And so people that live in Breckenridge, people that live on those pieces of property on the north side of there, that moved there for a certain reason, and now we're cramming down 10 more dwelling units per acre, because, come on, again, I'm gonna use my personal knowledge, sitting up here for 4 years, is developers are gonna come in here and try and maximize their density. I mean, come on, let's not beat around the bush there. So, again, if we're trying to solve for a 1 or 2 overage, that's a different story, but we're trying to solve for 10 over here, and I don't feel comfortable with the policy.
But we can go up to 25, I mean, it doesn't have to be 15 or 25.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I guess we can close the public hearing, and what's the pleasure of the board here?
I'm not comfortable moving ahead with that first area included because of the concerns voiced there and looking at the whole of that. I am in some of those other areas, so if it's as stated, I'm just not comfortable moving forward like that.
I'm not sure can we pull out? You can't increase the amount or designate new places, but you can take out areas like that one. If you wanted to take out the downtown area one, you can take that out, and we'd adjust the ordinance appropriately in the backup information. You just can't add in new areas or adjust the boundaries of the others.
And, and I agree as far as, I know there's a desire to build more of these, but I don't know that our citizens are looking for that. So I think we have to find that balance. What do we need as a city? And I think our citizens are speaking. So striking that balance there, we do have Martin Ridge, we do have some others that have started. I think that is helping to bring in. I totally agree. I think that they have shown they will come into the area. I think we need to protect this at this point.
Martin Road works, yeah.
So that's why those other areas I'm more open to, because they're not as developed. It's not going to disturb several neighbors as this area here, and the traffic concerns just all across the board. That's just kind of where I'm leaning on it.
Would you like to make a motion and carve out the 6th
I would
Street?
be willing to make a motion if we've carved out the 6th Street
Okay,
part of this.
we have
I don't know if there's concerns on any of the others.
Do you want to take out that whole map area? Because without the lower part, the upper part doesn't necessarily, it would be a little bit tight to be able to put anything in there along with the Hilton Inn.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
just
that's what
want
I would
the
say,
whole- The whole area?
this first presentation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my voice is clear. I mean, I would take out all, strip everything, especially, and again, especially the Bronson piece of property, because that's just a huge piece that's going to have a tremendous amount of impact to the people that are around that piece.
And which one is the Bronson piece?
That's by the hospital.
That's the third map coming in. It's the map 1-1C. Oh, I forgot it was on there. Yeah, thank you. That one.
And that's the one off Boy Scout Road.
Yeah, it's cradled by the 414, 429, 451. So it's kind of cradled, but like you said,
It's the next one after
house
that.
right there.
How many acres is it? Roughly?
Oh,
A few hundred?
yeah, that'd probably be
Three?
about 3.
So 300 times 10 increase, that's 3,000
Yeah.
dwelling units.
Yeah, the
Times
people that have been
80%
Yeah, the
of
people that have been
development.
coming in are looking at some industrial and some commercial.
Yeah,
and-
it's not going to be all
Yeah.
high-density residential.
Again, but my philosophy is when you set the policy like this, I'm trying to create the worst-case scenario. And the worst-case scenario is they could develop up to 25 dwelling
Maximize.
units per acre at 80% of the piece of property. So that's 2,400 dwelling units.
Yep.
So additional.
But I'm okay with that as long as what you're saying is true, that we have the option, the authority
Yeah.
to decline it. So if that's true, and we take out that first drawing,
Sixth Street.
Sixth Street, we take that one out, then I will second Commissioner Bankston's.
We got a motion by Commissioner Banks and a second by Commissioner Smith. Let me read this to adopt ordinance number 2747 minus the Sixth Street property, which is Sixth Street all the way to that whole first map. Yeah,
Probably map 1-1A, admit
Okay.
that, and then we can adjust the numbers for the other maps.
right, okay. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Got a 3-1 with Commissioner Becker, yes, voting negative. Okay. All right. Next up, ordinance number 2765. Linda?
Ordinance number 2765, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the future land use element of the Apopka Comprehensive Plan of the City of Apopka, changing the future land use designation from county rural to city commercial for certain real property located south of South Fork Drive and west of Plymouth Sorrento Road, comprising 5.92 acres, more or less, and owned by 1058 Plymouth LLC, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Commissioners. Phil Martinez, Planner 2 with the City's Planning Division. The applicant is proposing a small-scale future land use amendment from county rural to city commercial for approximately 5.92 acres. The subject property is highlighted in yellow, and to the north is South Fork Drive. To the east is Plymouth Sorrento Road and the Plymouth Landing subdivision. To the south is the State Route 429 Connector Road, and to the west is the State Route 429. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to CN, Neighborhood Commercial, which will be presented at the next agenda item. And the applicant is proposing commercial future land use, which is compatible with the previously mentioned CN zoning. The Development Review Committee and Planning Commission recommend approval of the small-scale future land use amendment from county rural to city commercial, and the recommended motion for this afternoon is to accept the first reading of ordinance number 2765 and hold it over for second reading and adoption on May 20th, 2020. This concludes my presentation, and the applicant and I are available for your questions.
Any questions for Phil? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? We'll close the public hearing, look for a motion from the council to approve ordinance number 2765 at first reading and hold it over for a second.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Becker, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2766.
Ordinance number 2766, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from T Transitional District to CN Neighborhood Commercial District for certain real property located south of South Fork Drive and west of Plymouth Sorrento Road, comprising 5.92 acres, more or less, and owned by 1058 Plymouth LLC, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Phil Martinez, Planner 2 with the City's Planning Division. The applicant is proposing a rezoning from Transitional District to Neighborhood Commercial District for the same subject property as the previous agenda item. And the proposed neighborhood commercial zoning is compatible with the proposed commercial future land use. The Development Review Committee and Planning Commission recommend approval of this rezoning from transitional to neighborhood commercial, and the recommended motion for this afternoon is to accept the first reading of ordinance number 2766 and hold it over for second reading and adoption on May 20th, 2020. This concludes my presentation, and the applicant and I are available for questions.
Any questions for Phil? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? We'll close the public hearing, look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2766 at first reading and hold over for second reading.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bankson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, Resolution 2020-08. Ed?
Resolution 2020-08, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2019, and ending September 30th, 2020, providing for a budget amendment.
Jamie?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Jamie Roberson, Finance Director, City of Apopka. Before you today, you have a budget amendment for 2 items. The first item is intergovernmental revenues associated with an interlocal agreement with Lake County for the Motorola Public Service Radio Communication Facility that we are being prepared to put up. So Lake County is contributing $100,000 to us for the project, and we need to use those monies to get the site ready and get the tower up. That is your first item. Your second item is a public safety police department grant for the 2018 JAG burn grant that we received. We were awarded it. It was on the consent agenda as well earlier today. So this is the appropriation, recognizing the grant revenues from a revenue standpoint and the appropriation so that PD can spend the funds. And the third item we have is the other item that was on the consent agenda for the airport improvement award for the fuel station improvements at the airport. The bid came in for just roughly right at $75,000. We have 10% contingency, so we're requesting reserves to be spent for $82.5 in preparation to make that repair at the airport fuel island to get it in compliance with DEP. We have a deadline of July 7th to get that completed.
Any questions for Jamie? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? We'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion on Resolution 2020-08.
So move.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Bankson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, Resolution 2020-09.
Resolution 2020-09, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, recognizing the existing state of emergency related to COVID-19 and the state's actions to begin the process of reopening businesses, authorizing the City Council to temporarily waive certain regulations in order to promote local businesses and the state's safe, smart, step-by-step plan for Florida's recovery, and provide for conflicts and an effective date.
Okay, I guess I'm doing this one. Well, first of all, I want to apologize. This resolution came to a good friend of mine, the mayor of Edgewood, is John Dallas, and as I said earlier, you know, imitation is his greatest form of flattery. Well, here's another one. This is the resolution that Edgewood approved on Friday at about 5 o'clock. So the reason it wasn't in your packet, didn't even know about it until sometime after that. So basically took what Edgewood put together, which basically gives some of our folks some additional, because the 25% capacity inside gives them the ability to spread out outside, which we all know outside's always better than inside as far as spreading the virus or to keep from spreading the virus. So I thought it was a really good resolution. They were thinking outside the box, and I said, well, rather than try to reinvent something, let's take what Edgewood's put together and bring it to City Council. So any questions on the resolution?
I love the idea.
Okay. So, well, yeah, I thought it was a great one too. So I immediately started working on it on Saturday. So anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve Resolution 2020-09.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, City Council reports. Mr. Banks?
Again, just to touch base on what happened over at Sandpiper, it's been a long time coming, and there's concern that people say, well, it's because a commissioner lives on that street. Well, we've been having accidents since '97 when I built there, so I'm very pleased with the city's response, because there was a very severe accident. Literally, I was in the back of my house and could hear it. And as was alluded to, I think, by Pam, or by Officer Harmon, the kids have known that is basically a runway, and there's a dip right at Usler, at Usler, and it basically has gotten around. If you go fast enough, you can get air. So that we've had at least, I think it's 7 severe accidents in our yard, and then others that were less severe, because we're literally that far down from it. It's about where they lose control. And this last one, there were 2 young people ejected from the vehicle, and yet thankfully there were no fatalities there. But it was quite severe. So the city moved immediately on that. It's because they had already been working on that. So that just helped to kind of push it through the goalposts there. And I do I wish Officer Harmon was here. I want to commend him and the way he handled it that morning. Our staff that were out there, the city workers, they jumped right on that and made that thing happen. So great appreciation there. I really do believe this is going to be, it's going to solve this issue unless someone just completely runs the light and does that. And I agree with the measures that are there. I think there's a necessity for a flashing indicator that, hey, there's a stop sign here, because people are used to that not being there. So again, was contacted by Commissioner Moore about that and about us working together. She thanked the city for doing that. Of course, they have Usler. But she talked about up at Thompson, and that there's a necessity there that they've been studying for some left or some right turn lanes, and wanted to talk with us about that. So I think that she is really willing to work with us and for us to advocate for those things as well. So anything we can do there, anything that's good for the people of this city, I'm for. So was just very thankful for that. And I do want to bring up a very great concern. I've been contacted with other pastors as well about Orange County's decision this week, and there's already attorneys that have contacted them on singling out churches and limiting them in the size. Obviously, as a pastor, I think there are people on all sides of the ditch. You can't speak for everyone, but I think obviously we care about our people, and we really want to make sure there are reasonable concerns. But I think there's a difference there, a limitation specifically that singles out churches, and I'm very concerned about the ramifications of that. So I'm going to continue to pursue that as well. But I appreciate where the city has been on those things. We need to care about that. There's 2 ditches, those that are completely, we should all stay locked in our closet, and those that think this doesn't exist. It does exist, but as long as we take reasonable measures, I think we need to begin to see our society move forward for the economic health, as well as the physical health and the mental health as well. So.
Okay. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of items. I've received a couple of calls from residents in Emerson Park in reference to the entrance to Emerson Park. There's a washout there of that wall, and when you enter into Emerson Park, right to the right, I mean less than 100 yards when you pull in, that retainer wall is totally washed out, and it's been that way for several months now, I'm told. So just want to bring that to the attention of Public Works. I'm not sure whose responsibility
find out whose wall it is.
that is.
Yeah, okay.
But it's right there, time you turn to Emerson Park, right to the right-hand side. You can't miss it. Second of all, I want to also recognize our teachers. This is Teachers Appreciation Week, and want to recognize them for all the hard work they're doing, especially now during these not-so-normal times when they're having to provide learning in a different method than what they're accustomed to. So want them to know that we really appreciate them and all that they do. Also to our first responders, our healthcare workers, and to our essential workers for what they have done during this pandemic to make sure that our citizens are safe and healthy. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Becker.
No, I mean, I would just echo Commissioner Smith's point. I mean, my wife is part teacher at home for the past 4 weeks, and I know so many of our residents here that have children are doing the same thing. It's a joint effort, partnership with the teachers that so desperately want to get back into the classroom and see their kids. I mean, we've been a part of so many Zoom meetings and all that sort of stuff. So it's I think it was the Starbucks CEO that's I forget what the phrase he coined, not the new normal, but our now normal. And it is. It's the now normal is this virtual teaching, and I have so much admiration of our parents and our teachers that support our kids in this city. So
good. All right. Edward.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. So, financial update. I have some positive news and I have some negative news, or good news and not so good news. So I kind of wanted to walk through real quick kind of give you now, as we're starting to feel the effects at the city, and you'll see in this presentation, it's a delay for us, a little delay before we start feeling the pain. But I wanted to give you an update, start with this meeting, and then I want to keep you abreast as we move through the year each month, or as we get data that'll be good for you to have, especially as we start working through the next budget process. So you've seen this schedule before. Mayor gave you this schedule. This is one that Finance keeps track of, our sales tax numbers. And you can see we received the April payment of about a little more than $923,000 in sales tax. And you can see that's still kind of trending. It was a pretty good number. Yeah. Well, the reason that is that number represents mainly February's collections. So that was before Disney closed, before we had a lot of the stay-home orders, before we started to feel the effects. So you ask yourself, why? Oh my gosh, that's a payment that we're getting in April, but it's February's contributions. So what you can see by this is there's a big delay. This is how it takes 2 months before we start feeling the effect. With that being said, this May payment that'll come in will reflect March's contributions. Keep in mind, too, that the governor put out an order to allow sales tax, delayed the collection of sales tax, gave the extension period of time to file. So these numbers are going to be everywhere, depending on who files and how they file. But this is a good spreadsheet for us to follow each month as we get these numbers in, so we can see. This revenue will be the biggest one, the biggest impact. Your property taxes, 91% of those have already been collected, so that revenue source is good. I want to show you some other sources that we're watching too. But as you can see right now, picture looks pretty good. When we get May's, we'll come back, we'll show you that, and we'll see how that looks. I want to show you what I've done right here. If you look in the column L, you'll see a projected loss. If you recall this, I think it was yesterday or the day before, the Department of Revenue put out some information that there was about a 25% reduction in sales tax for the May payment that we will receive, which is representative of March. Keep in mind, March was a 50-50 month. That's when about the middle of March is when it hit, when we had some of the theme parks closing and all. So I'm projecting, based on, and we've talked about this, and I've consulted with Jamie too, we've talked about this. We're thinking maybe we're going to see a 25% reduction or hit there. Like if the state says that's where we're at, we're thinking that's their hit, it's probably going to be our hit. And then as you can see, the 4 months out of that, which complete our fiscal year, I'm kind of anticipating a 50%. That, I think, is very conservative. Depending on what opens back up in which month will depend on, it may be better than that. I think this might be worst case scenario, but I don't have the crystal ball. So I'm projecting that. So overall, because in our world, we need to be prepared. What is that hit going to be? And I think it's better to start looking now than to wait till it hits. So I think you're probably going to see about a $1.6 million hit in this number. And again, it could be more or less depending on when things actually start opening back up. A lot of it depends on the theme parks because our sales tax is driven by the theme parks. So I wanted you to see that projection to show you what we're monitoring.
Well, along those lines, that 51% of the sales tax generated in Orange County is generated by tourists.
Right.
So when you take that, and then the other thing that you need to keep in mind, respect, is that restaurants, you pay sales tax when you go to a restaurant, but you don't pay sales tax when you go to Publix and buy your fresh chicken and your vegetables and your fruits. So we know how bad the tourism industry is right now, but you also need to take into account that the people that were going to restaurants, like my wife and I a lot, now you've brought that way back, and now you're eating at home. You've lost that additional sales tax that's not being generated. So it's, I think the number we're talking about is pretty conservative, but realize that tourists drive 51% of our sales tax.
Yeah, I mean, are you being bullish enough on, June and July? I mean, that may not be conservative enough.
You're exactly right.
Because if you have a 2-month lag effect, April is when really things truly
Oh, that
where
was-
it's most bleak, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have a 2-month lag, that's going to start hitting in June, and we're at 50 for June, 50 for July, you may even tick that up to 60, 70, right? I mean,
Exactly.
so
You're right, and we'll monitor that as we go, because I want to see if, when we get to the next payment, where we're anticipating 50%, let's kind of look at we'll have a feeler of how many restaurants are opening back up, are people out in the restaurants, do the theme parks, is their date July 1, is it June 30th, is it
on this
September?
data, do you all have access to how much of the sales tax is from Apopka specific? Do we have that data point, or no? They don't provide that to us?
You know, they don't provide that, Commissioner. We can maybe ask for that. In the past, I've asked for that. It's very hard to get because they put it all in one pot, and then they distribute it after they take everything out of it, and they have this formula is unbelievable. They take all their pieces out. The state takes all of their pieces out. Then there's different restrictions for counties that have issues. There's all kinds of things that in the formula, and then what they do is they give us our contribution. I've asked in the past for that. It's like pulling teeth. I don't think they quite have that number down. It's something we could ask for just to
Yeah,
see.
I mean, curiosity is killing me, right? Because it's interesting to see the shifts in behaviors.
Right.
You know, if we've got a whole bunch of residents here in Apopka that are at stay-at-home orders and they're really frequenting some of our restaurants and stuff like that locally, I'm just curious to see if there's a bump in, even by industry, what that is here in Apopka. But
we can reach out to DOR and ask those questions and get some of that data. Like I said, I've asked before, and it wouldn't hurt to ask. We can ask. I will keep in mind, and I don't know what that percentage is or what it is, how it is today, but I remember several years ago when I was in finance, I remember calling the state because I wanted to know how much tax is really collected in Apopka of that sales tax. And I was shocked. It was one of those things where it's like, I'm just going to be quiet. Because at that time, they kept telling me, they couldn't give me the real number, but they kept telling me, you're benefiting by having Disney, Universal, all of that. You're getting some contributions, you're getting some collections from them because you're the second largest city in Orange County. You're getting more of that piece of that pie. So they were telling me how that if we actually went on by Apopka, sales tax just in Apopka, that number would probably be a lot lower. So, but that's good information, and we can ask for it. It doesn't hurt to ask. You can always ask. So,
but one of the things we want to bring up is that if you go across the border into Seminole County, we get zero of those dollars. So when people go to, we got some good restaurants, right across the border, but when you go there, we get zero tax dollars from them. So when people say, you need to stay within Orange County for us to benefit from sales tax. So people don't realize that we benefit from Orange County sales tax, not Seminole County.
right. Well, I'll tell you a little story real quick about that, too. Is gas tax the same way. Buy the gas tax here, and I make my father, when he comes to see me, you fill your car up here. Don't go back to Lake County, fill your car up. And he says, I don't buy that much. I said, I don't care. You're here visiting me, fill it up, because I can get the taxes. So we can get the taxes in Apopka. But anyway, so yeah, it's important to encourage people, because a lot of people don't think about it. They drive to Seminole to go shopping, and they do everything, fill up, do all their stuff over there, when if they could do it here, they'll get more of that benefit, right, at least back to their city. So moving down through some other revenues, I wanted to highlight some of the major revenues. These are the main revenues that are volatile that we have to watch. And of course, park and recreation, as you know, our programs have been shut down. That number is budgeted about $643,000 that we usually anticipate collecting there. We've collected about $200,000. Now, what we have done, we've refunded about we will refund about $70,000 because those programs didn't take place. So we refunded those parents those monies back because we weren't able to have those programs. So as you can see, that's about a $500,000 variance. Now, that being said, doesn't mean that that's probably where it's going to end up, depending on what programs we can add back, when we can open back up, when we feel comfortable having those programs, that number could be better. But I think that's one we have to watch. It's a pretty significant number. It helps fund the recreation program. The school resource officer funding, there's some good news here. As you know, we have an agreement with Orange County Schools for $490,000. Schools have been closed. Our school resource officers haven't all had to work in the schools. They've worked in other places helping out. But we've collected $245,000 to date. Thanks to our attorney and police department, Aaron, and the police chief. They've worked really hard with the school board, And we were notified this week that we're going to get that other $245,000. So there's a gap there's some help there. So that's a good thing. That's positive news. VFW rentals, as you know, it's been shut down too. And we recently had, some changes to that agreement because we were, to try to collect some monies in this area so that we can make improvements to the VFW because it needs some things. But as you can see, we thought we'd bring in about 29 and we're at about 7,500. So that's another number that we were trying to make some improvements there with that revenue. But again, some of these things out of our control. We can't have events at this point. But I think it's important that you see that number too, that there's about $780,000. If we get the 245, that number is only about little, more than $500,000. But that's a number we need to be watching too, and I think we watch that each month and see when our programs, are we able to add our programs back and see if that number gets better. So, that's kind of doom and gloom. What are we doing here at the city to try to, do you have a question?
No, I think you're segueing into what, I thought you were done with yours, but you're going into row the.
So, okay,
Yeah,
so
mind.
that's
Go
a little
ahead.
doom and gloom. So we know that loss, we anticipate that loss is going to hit. And I am of the opinion, and I will tell you that this budget, I'd like to not get into the reserves. I'd like to end this fiscal year as break even as close as possible because we don't know what's on the horizon. We don't know how bad it's going to be in the future. And we don't know, hurricane season starts June 1. Just want to make sure that we have everything financially secure. So on the expenditure side, where are we? So before I go into this, I want to tell you that, I think I've mentioned it to some of you, staff's done a great job. I want to commend them for holding back on some of their expenditures. I will tell you, we're only buying and purchasing things that are essential for our police and fire, for our staff, our electric bills, things that we absolutely have to have. And with that in mind, we currently sit at the end of April with a positive balance between our revenues and our expenditures. That number is roughly 700, 800,000. Just keep that, I want you to keep that in mind. We'll continue to monitor that. That is one of my things that I continue to monitor every day, along with Jamie. It's very critical that we monitor that number. So keep that in your mind. That's some positive news. Open positions in non-public safety, we have roughly about 3 positions that we haven't filled. That comes out to about $200,000. They're non-essential. We've been able to survive without them, so we're going to continue to see if we can do that. Again, this is general fund picture, not touching utility side, not touching sanitation. Public safety. So you might say, why do we have open positions in public safety? Well, we have about 15 positions that have been open for off and on, because we have people leave, people come, so you've got that little bit of an offset. There's about $547,000 there that we have been able to still sitting in those budget lines. We're not trying to delay the hiring of public safety. As a matter of fact, the chief is advertising now, trying to get the vacant positions that he has in the police department, trying to find people. It's tough right now with the virus because the academy is closed or has issues, and so that is still essential and critical to us, so we're still continuing to fund those. But that is, if you will, a potential savings that could help us get through. Capital projects on hold, I don't like this. I don't want to tell you this because we keep preaching, got to get these projects done, these roof projects, these couple pieces of equipment that we're trying to get because we were trying to catch up. They're not public safety equipment. This number is mainly roof improvements and other pieces of equipment or software that the departments have said they can put off for right now and see where we come out. Public safety equipment has not been delayed. So with that being said, you've got about $1.5 million that we're kind of sitting on right now that we're kind of holding off on. Now, you might say, oh my gosh, we want to get these roofs done, we've got problems. I will tell you that we have itemized those items to try to put the most critical first. We want to see how we get through the next couple of months. and see, can we add one of those back? Maybe we can add one or two, or maybe we can add all of them, depending on how we've done saving in other areas and where the revenue, when we actually get, if the sales tax number gets better or some of our other fees get better. So positive news here, I think. It's tough times, it's hard, but staff's done a good job, and I think we're living within our means, and I think these are things we have to watch each month. So with that being said, I've been beating up on staff. What can we do? Look for ways that we can get some more money. Where are some opportunities that we can get? And really quick, we've applied for the DOJ COVID-19 emergency funding. We're applying for about $48,000. That'll help offset some of those costs that we've had to buy for protective measures and things like that. The Assistance to the Firefighters Grant Program is getting ready to open, so we're going to apply for that. The Rebuild Florida Hardening Program, that is a program that allows you to apply for roofs, for replacement of roofs that's come out. So we're going to apply for that. We've been told that not all of our roofs will qualify, but some of our roofs will qualify. So we're going to apply for that. And then, and Mayor may share some of this with you later, we recently, as I think yesterday maybe, we heard from Orange County. They have some CARES Act funding that we will be able to partner with them and recover some of our costs for our programs, our firefighters' time, police time related to COVID. So that being said, that's a lot of data, and I know we're watching everything, but I want you to see this picture as we move through each month, as we get closer to building the budget, so that you will see financially where we are. So we put some things in place. We're monitoring. We'll update those numbers and keep you up to date on those numbers as we move forward. So I think from that, I have a couple more things, but I think from that side, that's all I have. If you have any questions, and Jamie, I don't know if you have anything to add. We've been working together. Jamie and I have been working together.
Just to let you know, sales tax numbers don't come in until the end of the month, so we won't have the numbers for you at the next city council meeting. It'll be the first meeting in June, because they literally come like the last few days of the month.
Any questions for Edward about?
Yeah, I mean, but on this page alone, the net of what's on this page, we've got about $1 million shortfall just on numbers on this page, right? If I read this correctly, so we've got 1.6, call it 2 million of sales tax shortfall potentially to budget, and we've got 800K of missed revenues, so call it $2.5 million, say, and you've got 1.5 in identified savings, so the net of that is potentially 900K shortfall,
right,
or $1 million shortfall.
What?
But and then you're saying that from other budgetary kind of tightening up the belt, right? You've got line of sight to overall budget. We're about 700 to 800 positive budget performance right now at this time of year.
A little less than that, but you're
around the ballpark.
You're ballpark around
Okay.
there. Keep in mind that's today. We'll look each month as we go through, because some and the reason I say that is some bills come in a little later than others in the year. We have different timing parts of the year, but you're right.
But
right
yeah,
now, this is where we sit, and then next month we'll see where we fall.
And I think, what we're faced with right now, right? The expectation to be 200 or 300K or call it 500K above or below the line, a positive or negative variance, right? I think it's not a terrible news story. What I want to make sure that we don't, you mentioned some of the capital improvements like roof repairs, obviously getting into hurricane season, rain season. Yeah. I want to make sure that we're not jeopardizing future risk for what it might look like from a budgetary standpoint now. If it needs to be fixed, kind of like what we were talking over there off Vic Road, it needs to be fixed.
Right.
Right.
No, and we are. Yeah. We have. I've talked with Public Works. This grant is important, I think, and I think we have to apply for the grant in June. It's due by June 30th. I want to get that, at least apply for that, and just to see if we can qualify for that. The little concern I'm worried about is if we go ahead and start the roof, we don't qualify for that. So I'd like to see if we get filed by June to see if we can qualify for that, and be able to maybe take advantage of that grant. They have looked at the roofs. We've patched to this point. We've patched from the last couple of years. There's the public services roof is probably the worst roof. Granted, that's coming out of their fund, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to move forward with that one. We're being told that we may not qualify for that one under this grant. I want to make sure that we're not, so that we don't miss an opportunity. That roof we've had the biggest issues with, so, and that one we probably will move forward with. And my thing is I'd like to see the next couple of months, or at least next month, to see how hard that hit's going to be for the month of March, and then I'll know by that roughly what April's going to look like, and we may be able to add one back or whatever that they say is more important than the other. So
Yeah,
I see your point.
What I don't want to do is just jeopardize people, the effects of leakage, right? There's
Right, no.
Mold and all that sort of stuff. So
Right, and I know Public Works is our biggest one we've had the biggest issues with, and again, that's coming out of their fund. That's a different fund. So the ones that we have here are, we have Fire Station 3, we have City Hall, and we have the Annex. Those were the three that were in this one that we'll review those, and we'll itemize those, and we'll prioritize which one needs to be done first.
Yeah, I agree. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish in that
Right.
sense. We don't want to jeopardize something that ends up costing us even more.
Right.
We have reserves, you know where I stand on those. They're important, but they're there for these times. And if we need them, then I don't want to be foolish and not utilize them if it's something that's going to end up costing us more, or again, especially if it's a health issue for our people.
Right. No, I'm with you 100%. I think that's important. And I think
Like you
that's why
said,
we want to.
be conservative until we see kind of where
Right.
the real numbers are, and we can loosen up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Mr. Smith?
Well, my question was going to be in reference to the CARES Act funding, but you
Okay,
said
I'll
you were
take
going to
care-
address
yep,
that later,
yep.
so I hold them to them.
Okay.
Okay. And then I just have three other things that I would like to give you an update real quick. We talked a little bit about the Fifth Street parking already. Jim, I think it was Jim that mentioned that to you, yeah. They have their pre-con meeting. I talked to Vladimir, and he says they have their pre-con meeting the end of this week or the beginning of next week. So that means once we have that pre-con meeting, that'll give them the green light to go. So, and Jim kind of mentioned that to you as well. Also included in that project, we're talking about, doing some things in Central, South Apopka. We've really worked hard to make sure we have some things in here for South Apopka. The trees on Central are included. We're included in your tree bank allocation, so those will be going in as well when we finish the park. Street lights, we talked a little bit about it. I do want to tell you that I recently signed a proposal with Duke Energy they've scoped out our sections that we're responsible for in South Apopka, those streets that we're responsible for that currently have lights on them, and we're going to change those to LED, change all of those out that we currently have to LED, because they feel that once we change those LED, then we can circle back and find out, are those areas brighter with the LED? And then if we have some holes, we can come back and fill those holes in. They suggested change to LED first, because you may see a big difference in some certain areas just with LED, and then you can come back and add lights where you still have some dark areas that we can fix. And then also that they'll be changing out the lights at Northwest Recreation Complex. All the lights at the Northwest parking and all of that will be changed to LED as well. So we're slowly trying to fit in where the areas are that we can help lighting, because we don't have a good inventory and we're trying to get that, but at the same time, we're trying to go to the LED where we can and see if that makes a big difference, and then we'll add other lighting back.
Sure. I meant to say this the last meeting, I completely forgot, and I don't know what you just said, but it just reminded me that I wanted to bring this up for conversation, not to solve for right now, but as we get into budget season. With a lot of people enjoying the outdoors as part of this, to get out of the house, right? Yeah. You're sitting in your driveway enjoying a nice evening, and then bam, you're just nailed with all these mosquitoes. Can we contemplate that as we're going into budget season, measures around mosquito control within the city?
I actually just talked with Commissioner Moore about that this morning, and that's Orange County.
That's a county issue.
I know it's a county issue, but when you go to the county site, it's dated, and I've not personally ever seen a mosquito control vehicle go through my neighborhood. So I just, wherever it needs to be solved, if we can just put that as a point of focus on.
Commissioner Moore said, please forward those to her, and she will advocate those things.
Okay. And if you're called, they will respond. You can move to Rock Springs. They come pretty often.
Do they really? Okay.
So one more thing, last thing I have is resurfacing. I talked to Public Works, to Kevin in Public Works and Bo, and The resurfacing vendor, as you know, we awarded them the resurfacing project. They had to do their estimates and all their final drawings or what the things that they do for measurements and everything. And with COVID, they've been a little behind, but they should have a plan by the end of this week or next week, beginning of next week, so that we can start getting those streets that we have that we approved to be resurfaced. I will tell you this, in the resurfacing, one of the things that I told Kevin that I want to be very careful with, you know, the townhomes that are at the end of Welch and Vic that they're building. At the very end of Welch, where you dead end Welch, dead ends onto Vic, they're building those townhomes. They are supposed to put turn lanes in there. And that's an area where we were going to pave as well. I want to make sure that we coordinate with them, because I don't want us to resurface and then them come dig it back up and put in a turn lane and have patches. So I told Kevin and I'm working with Jim and Community Development, I want to try to coordinate that one so that it's smooth. The turn lanes and our resurfacing all come together. So just so you know, if you get questions on that one, we're trying to coordinate with them, and they're not quite to their turn lane portion.
What about the resurfacing on Bradshaw and Johns Road? Are we doing that?
That is not in our resurfacing program, so I don't know.
Somebody's doing it now. That's what I'm asking. I went through there.
I don't know.
Yesterday, and they were down to one lane. And so it's Johns Road, you know, we had all that complaint about the trucks.
Yeah, I'll
just
find
coming in
out.
and
I'll find out, because that's not in our program, but I'll
Okay.
find out. If somebody wants to pave our roads and they're paving that, then
Well, they're
then
paving
we're not going
it.
to say anything. Yeah, we'll let them pave
Yeah.
that. So we'll find. Thank you for saying that. I'll find out who's doing that if it's not in one of our agreements. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Thanks for that financial update. Yeah, I just think as we go, I think I'll tell you, our finance team is way ahead of everybody. And we're already asking, I said, Edward, why don't you get a meeting together with the other city managers around the Central Florida area to talk about how are they planning for, you know, this catastrophic, you know, loss of sales tax revenue. He said, they're kind of just waiting until the number hits them. I said, man, we started, you know, a month ago. We knew that we were, you know, or even more longer than that. Hey, we've got to cut where we can now, because when it gets there in the last 3 months and you're out, you know, $1.5 million, $2 million, you can't make it up. And so I give the finance team and quite honestly all the departments, they've done a great job. We said, listen, we've got to wherever we can squeeze a nickel right now, because this squeezing a nickel a day won't cost us $1, you know, come, you know, August, September. So the staff has really done a nice job, you know, taking that into account.
So others may emulate us now in this area.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, though. We just, you know, we won't name names, but it's like, you know, everybody's kind of like, you know, we hadn't even really thought about it. Well, man, you know, and so Jamie, I've got her pushing up, like, to get our you know, our audit done, so that we've got those numbers to, you know, so as far as we can get, the farther we can get ahead, because when those sales tax numbers, which, you know, obviously it's $12 million a year that we count on, or we're in our budget, you know, we've got to, we can only make it up so fast. And so we've done a remarkable job considering, you know, where we're at.
I had one other thing, I'm sorry. Fountains. So we also gave they were about to issue the notice to proceed. Vladimir, again, on this project, has worked hard on this project for the fountains in Martins Pond and the new fountain at Northwest Rec. They will begin their construction very soon, and they've given us a completion date of June 25th. That's an estimated date that they're telling us, but June 25th, they hope to have both of the fountains in for us. And again, all of these projects are funded. They're not in this number, so these are items that do not impact this financial update. So thank you.
Okay. Got a lot of things, and I'm sorry. It's been an interesting 3 weeks. You know, it's 3 weeks since we had our last commission meeting, and as you everybody knows how things have changed dramatically overnight. And so I guess I want to go back. This has been almost 3 weeks ago. I had a nice conversation with Barbara Jenkins, the superintendent of schools. You know, I heard a lot of parents talk about, you know, doing something for their graduates. You know, here's their senior year, and they're not going to have a graduation. And so it just so happens that we'd put together a map at Northwest for, you know, if we were going to do some testing for the COVID. And I said, gosh, I've already got a map. I've got it all set up. We've got room out at Northwest for 2,000 cars. We could do the parade, have the kids drive their cars right through this parade. And so immediately we got off to the races. We've had one meeting with Apopka High School, one meeting with Wekiva. We've got a budget for the two of them. It's a little over $5,000, so we're trying to raise some money. But I've got, there should be a sheet in there about the parade, but everybody's excited. It will be a city-sponsored, nothing to do with OCPS, so everybody realize it's a city-sponsored event. We are really excited about giving our seniors that graduation. And quite honestly, 20 years from now, they'll think, wow, I had the best graduation ever. I mean, how many got to get a graduation picture in their car in front of their mascots or their archways and out at Northwest. So we're real excited about that. So we've got, parents have teamed up. We're working through it. Got another meeting on Thursday, 4 o'clock. If anybody's interested, come down to City Hall. We're putting together the teams to make this really something special for the kids. We've got Salem Communications is coming out. They're going to be a live radio broadcast, which is really kind of neat. So the kids will be recognized as they enter the park. So everybody will get to know they've been there, and so a lot of great things I think will come from that parade. So next up, coronavirus update. You got the numbers from Chief Wylam as far as 32703, 32712, 32798. 32712, which is 0 for the last 5 days. 32703 is 1 the last 4 days, so really low numbers. So it should be I think maybe not.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll get you those numbers. So anyway, numbers are great. We're doing really well on that. To let you know, going back to the CARES Act, we've got had a real good conversation with Fred Winterkamp, which is he's in the finance team for Orange County. They've got a lot of money coming from the federal government that will go toward COVID-19 activities. And so, we did Monday and we did Wednesday. We did 2 drive-by antibody tests over at the VFW. Chief Wylam, great job putting that together. Very efficient. We did 100 vehicles on Monday and 100 today. 1 positive, right, today? Just 1 positive. And what I think is really neat is I asked Chief Wylam if he would put together a map. So in the back over here is a map of all the people that we've tested. This is just for Monday, right? Just Mondays. Oh, both days. So Monday and Wednesday, all the people that have been tested are on that map. So you'll get to see people are tested and it's negative. I don't think we have the positive one on there, but do we have the antibody one? We had one person with antibodies? One person with antibodies and 1 person further. So anyway, I think it's a good roadmap going forward. So we've got a schedule. So now that we know we've got funding and it's not FEMA money coming 2 years from now. It's immediate funding. So that's going to help us support the team that's out there doing the testing. We've got our volunteers from our school, OMI. They obviously they're out of school now because they can't no school. So they're coming out and volunteering their time to help us with the drive-by testing. So it's really working out well. We had a partnership with the community health centers. So if they came up positive at the antibody test, they can go over to the community health center and get the swab test. By Monday or by Tuesday morning, we'll have our own swab test here. So you'll get the test on Monday. If you come up positive, come back Tuesday morning. We'll get the swab test, 48 to 72 hours, Chief, to get the results back. So really efficient. Appreciate the team. Obviously, police has been involved, getting everybody stacked up right. So it's really worked out well.
Mayor, before you go to the next item, I was asked to ask if it was possible to arrange for walk-up testing as well. I know on Monday we had an individual that walked up to get tested and was told she couldn't be tested because she wasn't in a vehicle. So she walked back down to the church, and one of our members put her in her car and brought her back up. And so they told me to ask if it was possible for walk-up testing as well, because everybody don't have a vehicle.
That's actually part of the state rules and certain things with that. It sounds funny, but insurance and stuff like that.
Okay. All right, I asked.
Yep, you got it, okay. So anyway, and along those lines, we had an interesting proposal from MEDEC, M-E-D-E-K. That one, I hope you've got that in your packet. It's a company in, well, I think Eustis, Tavares, all in Lake County anyway. They have the ability to take our, the testing that we're doing and put it into a format that's HIPAA compliant so that we get that, you know, always talk about there's testing and tracing. They have the ability to trace, but within the HIPAA guidelines. They're willing to use Apopka as their test site to do this, the testing, tracing, all that, and they're going to start on Monday for the city of Apopka to do their be their beta test on this. So all of their information is encrypted, so it meets all the HIPAA guidelines, and so you'll be able to spot, you know, if we ever had a hot spot, you'll be able to pick up the hot spot, know, you know, where you need to do your testing because of the tracing they're doing. So it's an an interesting program. I just said, you know what? Yeah, we're all on board. They're going to do it for as a free service to Apopka.
And this is going to be made available to all of our businesses?
Anybody that goes through the testing will be, yeah, absolutely. So we're real excited. Take a look at that. It's the MEDEC Health City of Apopka launching COVID Safe Pass. Really interesting technology, and so we're real excited to be a part of that with MEDEC and look forward to some of those opportunities. Next up, prayer service. You know, we're not having the prayer breakfast on Thursday morning, but we're still going to have a social distance / YouTube video of our prayer service, which will be in front of City Hall, 12 to 1 o'clock. So for anybody that wants to
And
dial
that
in.
was just the pastors, just the
Correct.
ministers are coming for the prayer, and then
Correct.
others can watch.
Yeah, and watch it on YouTube. Yeah, so that's 12 o'clock in, you know, at City Hall, and then, yeah, watch it on YouTube video. So real, you know, we wanted to do something that's, you know, it's important, I think, that we, in this time of need, and that we honor that prayer service. So that will continue. Let's see, what else? I got that. Task force. There's some information on about a task force. We had 2 meetings of the task force, which was put on by Robert Agrus in the chamber, and we had about 30 members from the community that were a part of that task force. And I gave them a list of criteria, which I knew were some of them, quite a few of them might have been uncomfortable, but as a way to balance getting back to work with the safety and the health that we all desperately need to protect. And so anyway, we had two really good meetings. And so I'm asking the city council to give me approval for is we're looking at it's called the Apopka Gold Seal program. It should be in your packet. And it was, what I'd like to do is the concept for the program, it's a voluntary program for anybody that would like to be a part of it. There's basically only 3 things that they have to do to meet the Gold Seal standard. One is they have to have face coverings for all their employees and customers, temperatures taken for all their employees and customers, and then we need to make sure they have special accommodations for employees and or customers that are seniors or have underlying health conditions, medical conditions. So basically, if somebody has if they're diabetic and they're an employee, you don't need them on the front line of it at a restaurant. You need them maybe doing the paperwork in the back, or whatnot. For customers, you need to be able to give them extra space or somewhere that you can keep them protected from the general public. So this is something that the chamber was in full support of, and so would like to get council, give me approval to go ahead and put this Gold Seal program into place. Or any questions or concerns about that?
My concern is once the city gives them this Gold Seal approval, should anybody go there and become ill, are we going to be liable?
We are not liable.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that was my concern.
Yep, yep.
What exactly are we, why do you need a council approval?
Well,
for
I
this?
don't,
Okay.
I don't really,
Okay.
I'd like to have it.
Okay.
If that's something something you'd like to do, I think I think there are people out there that want to get back to doing what they do, but they'd like some extra protections. In the original proposal I had, even, phone numbers for all customers and employees, they were a little uncomfortable with that, which I understand, but my whole point with that was for tracing purposes, so we scaled it back and just these three.
But I personally like the idea of the phone numbers, and I spoke to a couple of individuals, and they say because you were not taking personal health information, that should not have violated HIPAA laws. All you have is the name and the phone number. Because I would love to get the call if there was an outbreak to let me know that I was exposed.
I'm with you. I agree with you, but that's not what the chamber, they shot me down on that one.
All right. Well, if you're ready for a motion.
Yes, sir.
I also move that we accept and adopt the Apopka Go SEAL program for the local businesses here in our city.
Okay, got a Commissioner Smith motion, second.
Second.
Commissioner Becker, a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, task force, parade. Let's see, I thought I had one more thing. Oh, next Thursday, the United Against Poverty is going to be coming out to the VFW to do a feed, or they have a program basically where they sell fruits, vegetables, all those things at basically the cost to transport it. So it's a really good program. They run out of downtown, but they're trying to make the rounds around the Central Florida area. So they're going to be bringing produce, like for instance, eggs. I don't know what a dozen eggs cost you. Let's say it's $3. They'd sell them for 30 cents. I mean, it's a very, very nominal charge. They'll have the particulars, kind of give you some ideas on what it costs, but very, 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 very reasonable. You couldn't get it anywhere near that price. So they're going to be coming to the VFW on Thursday, which would be what day? May.
Is that the 8th?
May. No, not tomorrow. May 14th.
Oh.
14 from 10 o'clock a.m. to 3 p.m. So be happy to do that. Okay, next up, upcoming events. Just need yay, nay, or we can wait on it. Let me give you the first one, July 4th fireworks. We have until the end of the month to cancel that contract if we don't want to do fireworks. We could wait till the next commission meeting if you want to wait. Okay, everybody want to wait on that one? Yeah. Okay. Next one, so we're going to wait till May 12th. Okay, May 20th. Garage sales. What do we want to do with garage sales? They're permitted use, but
And we're talking about citywide?
yes, because right now they're not. We've shut them down, and they meet the guidelines of essential.
Yeah,
And I think just as we're waiving the permitting of those other items for the next 90 days, I would say we go ahead and open those back up.
Now,
Yes,
So-
and providing they still do the
social distancing.
Yeah, I mean, it may be, can we require not to do these community-wide garage sales? Maybe, I mean, relaxing.
Singles?
Yeah, single
Yeah,
garage sale.
individual
Okay.
homeowners.
Okay, and then do you want to talk about the community-wide ones, or just leave that for now? And
I don't know,
I was
just
still
throwing
waiting
out a
on
thought.
okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. All right, we can do that. Okay, Apopka Youth Work Program. They've already set that back until it's it's a 6-8 program that would have started basically the day after school ended. So they pushed it all the way back to it would start. They would finish up just before school started again. Do we want to pull the plug? Do we want to wait a little longer?
I think we ought to, I mean, we can always pull the plug if we get there and
Okay.
everything is just really
Okay.
not looking good.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I
wanna
would
wait?
say let's go ahead.
Yeah.
You say go?
Yes.
Okay, and we can always revisit it, okay,
Because,
just,
the way you kind of look at it, like, let's assume every company that participated in Apopka Youth Works was public supermarkets, right? I mean, they're employing their employees, right? And they're making, it's incumbent upon them to make sure that they have safe working environments, knowing what the risks are right now.
Right,
So,
right. But they don't need, they're part-timers, which, you know, you're, and.
Yeah, but you take care of your part-timers just like you do your full-timers.
Well, I know that, but, you know, to take a risk on us, I'm not disagreeing with you. I
Right.
mean, I'm with you, but I'm just saying, looking from the employer point of view, you got somebody that's in there for 6 weeks, that I don't know where he's been and what he's done, you know.
But aren't a part of the gold seal, isn't are we doing the temperature thing?
Yes, yeah.
All right, so
Okay,
I feel safe.
yeah, I mean, all of these are with the caveat that, you know, this situation is very fluid, right?
Yeah, but
mean,
I
it's-
just want to,
yeah.
you know, that's good. Okay, summer camps. Just another wait, because, you know, we're getting to the point where I have to start hiring those summer camp.
I'd say let's wait a little bit on that.
I want to wait on that one as well. Okay, next one, Memorial Day service.
Yeah. It's an outdoor,
It's in the cemetery.
So just-
there's ability to have
6 feet.
distance.
Okay, so we're
And
good to go?
The
Memorial Day?
morale of
Okay,
that, we need
all
to
right.
remember who we are, Americans.
Okay, Friday night concert series, we've only got one more in May. I just say just cancel that one and we'll worry about that in the fall.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then farmer's market.
I think the big concern was the ability to enforce the safety measures. And if they're coming in, we know that our numbers look very good right here.
Yeah.
Are we bringing in an element that would really concern us? And is there a way to do that in such a way that we can have relative safety measures? Because we've got to balance this thing and get people back to work as well.
So did I see that Winter Garden is going ahead and reopening theirs?
I don't think they ever shut down.
Right. And so are they, you know, obviously it's the same company.
Yes.
Do we have kind of insights into what all the measures that they have in play to?
I don't think I think it's.
I thought that before, when there was a proposal of us possibly doing it, there were certain measures to keep them distance-wise and,
Yeah. I mean, we could get with them and find out. I mean, and then if you're okay, maybe we put it off a week and let's make sure that we could get it out to everybody based on some criteria some additional criteria they've got. Then maybe not just, if you want to open it back up.
And can they
maybe wait.
send us a copy of whatever that is?
Yes, I'll do,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
But,
let's
but I
do
mean,
that.
I'd like to go ahead and tell them, you know, without coming back, if we're comfortable with the criteria they've got, you know, it's obviously. So what,
Did you say wait
Well, I mean,
till our
if-
next
if-
meeting
if they've
on
got
that
some
one and
additional
get
criteria-
some criteria first?
if we got some criteria, well, I mean, I don't want to wait till, if we want to get them, do we want to have it? I mean, I'll get that out to you tomorrow. If the criteria is pretty good, are we good just to open it up next?
Yeah, if there's
next
safety
Thursday?
criteria
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
everything else is, then, you know, I'm open to start seeing things move.
So next week from Thursday, week from
Yeah,
tomorrow?
I mean, you see the evolution even at Publix, right? I keep on going back to that as an example. I mean, back when this thing first started, everybody generally still went into the store, right? And then next thing was you did one-way aisles. The next thing was you limited the amount of people that were allowed into the store. So as this thing has progressed, so have the variations in how people have addressed safety concerns. So assuming that they're doing the right things to address those concerns and it's enforceable, like they're seeing it enforced, that's the big key, right? So.
And most citizens are taking it upon themselves also to do the social distancing as well.
Yeah, it's like I got some holes in my yard, I needed some grass plugs, and so I went down there Saturday morning to Lowe's, and it was like, oh my gosh, I mean, maybe there was social distancing, but they had every square inch was covered with people that met the 6-foot guideline, so I just said, you know, I'm gonna come back when it's not as busy.
And
So
it's been that way in Publix, it's been
Yeah.
that way in Home Depot, and our numbers are good. So we're showing that it's effective. Either the season of this thing is ending. Again, I'm not the expert on this, but again, if there's reasonable measure, just like with these others, it's starting to, I think it's allowable to move forward.
Okay, perfect. You got it. All right. And then last but not least, we have with us Michael Rodriguez. He is our candidate for the attorney for the city of Apopka, and I'll let you know that Edward and Joe and I all met with Michael, and so if you looked at his resume, impressive. And it was funny because as Joe was, we were finishing up the interview, he says, "Man, I'm just glad he didn't interview when I interviewed a year and a half ago." He says, "You'd never hired me." So even Joe was really impressed with his resume and his knowledge and experience. So I will tell you that a real good friend of mine I was serving with in the legislature, Pat Patterson, who's a legislator from Volusia County. He was the chairman of the county commission over there for a couple of years and knew Michael well and couldn't wait to call me to tell me how good a guy we had that we were interviewing. So if he's good enough for Pat Patterson, who's a curmudgeonly old guy, then he's good enough for me. So great interview, great references, and with that, Michael, come on forward and let these commissioners beat you down with their tough questioning.
Well, again, good afternoon. I guess for the record, Michael Rodriguez, I'm the candidate for city attorney, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
I actually got to speak with you by phone, and, between that resume and our conversation, I feel very good.
Good. Commissioner Smith?
And I also had an opportunity to speak with him by phone as well as going through his resume, and he made a 20-year commitment.
Originally, you said 40 years. I said, at 40, I don't think you want an 88-year-old city attorney. I shouldn't be practicing law.
I did ask for 40, and so I met him halfway, 20.
So he negotiated it down. So
He's a good attorney. Commissioner Becker.
Well, I guess I'm the delinquent one. I did not have an opportunity to speak with you prior to the meeting today, but I did review the resume, and impressive. I guess, as we get to the motion to accept or whatever, I guess my only question is, do we need to form it in the form of a question based off of your little nugget there on the resume of being a former Jeopardy
That is true.
contestant?
Since we got a couple of minutes, why don't we go ahead and I've heard the story, so you need to hear the Jeopardy story, because obviously everybody's looked at that. Okay, I'm not going to ask that question, but I'm going to let him tell you the story of Jeopardy. So, Michael, go away. Give us your Jeopardy story.
Sure. I guess in a 5-minute overview, yes, I was a Jeopardy contestant. We taped in December of 2000, and it aired April 2001. Funny aside, when I was there for the taping, I was strictly forbidden from making any hanging Chad jokes. The election was actually not decided. The night I taped was the night the Bush v. Gore decision came down from the Supreme Court. But I was prohibited from making any jokes regarding the Florida elections because I said, by the time it airs, it won't be funny anymore. But I did it as a contestant search, and I finally was picked. I came in second place, begrudgingly then found out when I watched the taping. I was there when it was still, you can only win 5 times, and then you had to go off the show. I was up against a 4-time champion who was going for his 5th time, and at the time of Final Jeopardy, which still to this date, I know the question still by heart. The category was satire, and I was not comfortable with the category. So my fear was initially, I flew out to Los Angeles. They don't pay for you to go to the taping. You have to pay your own way out to LA. And I thought, if I come out here and I go home with 0, my wife is going to kill me. So I hedged my bets and made sure I left the taping, guaranteed my 2nd place finish. It was a beautiful week-long vacation at Club Med in Mexico. When I watched the taping afterwards, I had realized that the 5-time champion remembered a certain loophole in the rules that I had forgotten, which was if you finish with a tie, you get to be the 5-time champion and the other contestant gets to come back. I had realized if I bet it all, he's just going to bet everything as if I had bet all plus $1 and I was going to come in second. So had I decided to go for it all, I would have tied him because I did get to the Final Jeopardy question correct. So that's my while I was there, I said, no, Alex Trebek is no more intimidating than the judges who I was in front of at the time. At the time, I was an assistant county attorney in Martin County. So it's like, he's not any more intimidating than some of the judges I had to face down there. So that was my experience. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I no longer watch the show because I now know what the wizard behind the curtain is like, and I know all the tricks. And I'm also prohibited from ever appearing on the show again. Once you're a contestant once, you can't go back. So that's my my nugget of information and trivia regarding my knowledge of trivia.
All right. Any other questions? Need a motion to approve Michael A. Rodriguez as the city attorney.
So moved.
Got a motion by
Second.
Commissioner Bankson, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Glad to have you on board.
Mayor, one other thing that I wanted to bring up before, I'm sure I would speak for everyone, our condolences to you and your family as your wonderful father is with the angels singing now, but it's a wonderful man.
He was a good guy, yeah. It lived 90 great years, and, wish could have had the last 21 days back, but, that is what it is, and the only thing he probably would regret is that he didn't have a big celebration, because he was always about big crowds, and, not to have, celebration of life. Mom thinks they'll forget him in 3 months, and no, he'll be okay, Mom. We'll be fine. So anyway, thank you. Thanks for the condolences, and we appreciate it. And then I'll make, if you want, I'll have Stacy make these. I'm sorry I didn't get those to you. It's been a couple of crazy weeks. I've been on, more Zoom calls and calls from federal to state to local to League of Mayors, and it's been crazy. But thanks for your patience. Apologize again that, things have been, I like to be on Friday, everything's in your book. It's just the way it's worked out. But with that.
You forgot to tell us about the $250,000 we was going to get in the CARES Act from the county, did you?
Oh, well, the COVID money?
Yes.
We got, basically, we have to show them, we have to have a, anything that is COVID-related, so that would be us doing all of our testing will be covered by the county, not the county, it's federal money that's being distributed by the county. So all of our testing, which would include our officers out there directing traffic for the COVID testing, it would the test kits, it's the firefighters, so anything that's related to COVID will be covered. They will never pay for any reduction in revenue. So if it's revenue related, we're pretty sure they're going to pay for that camera, because when we went to the virtual meetings, that will be covered as well. So there's a lot of things that we just got to look at. Employees out for 14 days, either they've got the virus or they've got a family member that has the virus, that's covered. Okay. So it will help. There'll be some things that'll help our budget a little bit here and there, but just know that anything so the nice thing is both chiefs have done a real nice job of keeping our documenting all of the employee parts and then all of our supplies that come in, so that we can be sure that we're reimbursed by the county / federal government. So, Yep. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
It's just simple calls.